They got him, ladies and gentlemen. The individual who leaked the papers from the Pentagon about what was going on in Ukraine. And there's some really interesting details now. Now that it's confirmed that this is just apparently some 21-year-old dude who was anti-war and was trying to impress his friends, it basically confirms that what's in these papers is real. And what does that mean? In all likelihood, Russia's actually winning. And the U.S. does have personnel on the ground. That's right. U.S. Special Forces confirmed on the ground in Ukraine. Well, how about that? But not just the U.S., a whole bunch of other countries, too. So we're going to have to jump into that one. And oh, boy, U.S. on the ground. Do you think Russia looks at what's happening there and says, we're not at war with the West, when the West actually has intelligence and tactical support working in that country in their war against Russia? That'll be fun. And then we'll talk about this video that's come out showing one of the Tennessee Democrats attacking motorists in their cars with a street cone. My favorite part of this video is actually when one of the leftists waddles around and then falls over, acting like they got struck by a vehicle, and then flail and flip around on the ground. It's just remarkable that we as a society take these people seriously. You know, everybody knows when you watch a soccer match, that dude didn't get hurt. He's rolling around on the ground screaming because like a feather touched his ankle. That's what these people do all the time. They'll be standing in the middle of the street, they'll hit a car themselves and then flip onto their backs and start screaming. And for some reason, everybody's supposed to take that seriously. Enough. It's time to arrest these people. I guess the problem is the cops are either unwilling or incapable. So we'll talk about that. But before we get started, my friends, head over to, we're first going to jump to Cask Brew Coffee, caskbrewcoffee.com. And you can purchase your Rise with Roberto Jr. breakfast blend. This is our new coffee company. We launched it. We're sponsoring ourselves. And your coffee, if you order today, it's a pre-order and it will ship by May 5th. So it recently entered production. Definitely, if you want to support us, you can go to caskbrew.com. And also don't forget to head over to timcast.com. Click that Join Us button. Become a member, and you'll get access to the members-only uncensored show. We have those Monday through Thursday at about 10 p.m. live on the front page of the website. And you'll also get access to our Discord server where you can hang out with like-minded individuals. And if you've been a member for at least 6 months or you sign up at the $25 level, you can actually submit questions to call into the show and talk to us and our guests. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Winston Marshall.
Hi, fellas. Thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. Who are you? What do you do?
I'm a musician. I was a co-founding member of the band Mumford & Sons and quit in 2021 over issues of free speech, I'd say fundamentally. I had tweeted about a book written by Andy Ngo documenting Antifa, and it caused some backlash, you could say. It became a big story, and initially I apologized, I'd say under quite some duress, but also not perhaps being open to not knowing the whole situation. And but that didn't rest for my conscience, and so eventually decided the only thing I could do was retract the apology and quit the band. And
Wow.
Since doing that, it's been coming up to 2 years now. I've launched a new podcast with The Spectator, which is a British political magazine, actually the oldest political magazine in the world, and still making music and doing media and writing and having fun. So but thanks for having me on your show, and I look forward to speaking to you.
Absolutely. We also got Bill Ottman. He's back.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back. Yeah, and Winston's also performing this weekend at Minds Fest at the Vulcan, your new record. Psyched to, or some maybe.
I'm going to play some old songs.
Some old
actually.
songs.
Yeah. But thank you so much. I'm excited. Bill kindly invited me to play at speak at the Beacon, where I met some of you guys last. When was it ever? Last summer, June or something.
Yeah.
And very exciting what you're doing with Minds. I look forward to hearing more about the latest.
Yeah, and yeah, we're all in Austin. It's great to be here with you guys. Tim's got his sold-out show tomorrow night. And
Timcast IRL live at the Vulcan tomorrow in Austin, Texas.
yeah, so if anyone, there's a few tickets left, almost sold out, Minds Fest, but you can get them at the Vulcan site or at festival.minds.com. Yeah, Minds is a free, open source, decentralized social network working on internet freedom. If anyone wants to check it out, minds.com.
Right on. Ian's chilling.
Oh, I sure am, man. And Bill, you were just on Joe Rogan's podcast. That one, I just saw the first hour of it on Spotify today. And man, it is nice to hear you talking about AGPL3 with Joe Rogan.
We went deep, brother.
The AI
Nice
stuff.
job, Joe.
AI, aliens, what's better?
It gets deeper. I'm going to watch the other 2 hours later. Winston, always a pleasure, man. I met you last year, too, at the
That's
Minds
right.
Fest. So here's to many more. I'll see you on Saturday.
And then, of course, Luke Witkowski of We Are Change.
Aliens has my attention. And also, before we start, friends don't let friends eat seed oils. That's why I'm wearing the shirt that I'm wearing right now, which you could get on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And today's meetup was a huge success. It was 3:30 on a Thursday, and like 50 people came out. Ian was my special guest. Ian, thank you so much for coming out. I'm going to be doing another members-only meetup in Miami in a few days, all on lukeunfiltered.com. Ian, the crowd was awesome.
We talked about magnetism. We talked about crazy technology, anti-gravity. It was wild.
Interesting crowd.
Thanks for
interesting
having me, Luke.
conversation.
Thank you so much, man.
No, it was awesome.
And of
Well,
course,
let's do
Serge
that.
is pressing the buttons.
What up, Serge?
Yes, I am. What's up, y'all?
All right, so we'll jump into this first story. We got big news, ladies and gentlemen, from Business Insider. Jack Teixeira, 21, arrested in connection with the Pentagon document leak. Attorney General Merrick Garland. The suspected Pentagon leaker was arrested Tuesday by federal agents in Dayton, Massachusetts. Merrick Garland identified the suspect as Jack Teixeira, 21, a guardsman specializing in intelligence. Teixeira allegedly shared highly classified documents about the Ukraine war online. So they're treating this guy like, enemy number one, public enemy number one. But there's a few important things just to bring up right away as to why the story matters. 1, the mainstream media lied. 2, Joe Biden lied. 3, it seems like Russia's actively winning the war. And 4, actually, there are U.S. special forces on the ground. This is now confirmed. It's not speculation. And, everything you thought about the war, you've been lied to about. And I can just assume that anybody listening to the show is not surprised at all because, been here, done that.
Yeah, I mean, they've been on the ground since 2014, and this latest action by the Federal Bureau of Investigations and the DOJ going after this whistleblower, treating him like a terrorist, by the way, the way that they captured him it's just absolutely crazy when this guy is coming forward, providing documents that, by the way, the corporate media was gaslighting us, telling us, we're real. Oh, these files don't exist. Then they said, oh, no, they do exist, but this one portion about the number of Ukrainian dead troops is definitely manipulated here out of all those documents. And then they told us, oh, it was definitely the Russians that released this information. And today we found out that exactly was not true at all. And there's a lot of big things in these documents. They were out on Discord for a number of weeks. No one really paid attention to them. But now, after all the gaslighting, after all the propaganda, all the lies, it looks like these documents are legit. And they do speak to a lot of the bigger things that are happening in Ukraine that we should have a real serious conversation about. Sorry, Ian, I cut you off.
Oh, Senator Joe Manchin tweeted out, I don't know if you guys saw this 8 hours ago, in my lifetime, I've never seen the United States of America in a more just war. And it's a video. And people are like, Congress didn't declare war, bro. Like, this
Right.
guy's a senator, and he still
From
doesn't
West
understand.
Virginia.
That's really concerning.
Yeah, we're going to make sure he's not a senator for much longer. Granted, he's got a few more years left. There's nothing we can do about that because you can't recall senators, but that guy's a scumbag.
Yeah, I mean, we used to respect Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers and muckrakers and whistleblowers in this country, and now we're doing the exact opposite of that with the Washington Post and the New York Times being accused here working with Bellingcat, specifically hunting down this whistleblower. Just a few days ago, 6 days ago, Reuters was saying that according to anonymous U.S. officials, ever heard that one before? You hear it all the time when they try to tell you a bunch of lies. According to U.S. anonymous officials, Russia was behind this leak. Again, why are they continuing to lie? Why do we believe them? The only real way that we could get truth in this country is through whistleblowers. So for them to go after this guy so hard really shows you how they're trying to hide the bigger truths here. Because, if people really knew what the government was doing, if everything was declassified, they would be pissed. And people know that. And that's why they try to suppress this story as much as they did.
That's true, too. But the big thing here is that in the documents, the reason the media comes out and says these documents appear to be real, but may have been manipulated. That is to say that someone took real documents and altered the numbers. The reason why they had to lie is that the documents show that Russia's only suffered around 17,000 casualties, despite the fact the media has been reporting 200,000, and that Ukraine has suffered around 70,000, which is, now that we know who this guy is, now that we see that it's just some dude who got arrested, not a Russian, looks like Russia's winning the war in Ukraine.
We
and
also
they keep
have-
dumping more and more money into it, and we are losing. Not that I want to be over there.
And we have Kirby coming out telling the press not to cover it.
Who's Kirby?
John Kirby, he's like a spokesperson. I mean, just a shocking clip.
National security spokesperson.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the guy you're talking about
Yes.
here specifically coming out. Yeah, don't report on this. And again, the Pentagon also
said don't do it.
Yeah. The Pentagon also sent notices to social media companies saying, don't do this. Elon Musk commented on this saying, if there's one way not to bring attention to a story, this is not the way to do it. I'm paraphrasing. He didn't say it in the exact way. But this is a big story and highlights a lot of Ukrainian young men that are dying, that are passing away. And I think we have to start asking the question, why? What is the goal here? What is the purpose here? What's really going on here? Why are we being told everything's peachy, everything's the Russians are going to be defeated any moment now? You hear it on the television all the time. History repeats. Russia usually has a very bad way of starting wars, but the longer the wars continue, historically, the Russians have a huge amount of manpower that they throw into these wars and usually are more successful and are able to defeat their victories the longer a war goes on. So to one, prolong this conflict in the history, in the Afghanistan of Europe, that is Ukraine, is absolutely crazy in the first way, even if you are pro-Ukraine. But second of all, how many innocent young men, you're destroying an entire population of young men that are being butchered and slaughtered for what? The profit of the military industrial complex?
I used to think that, but you guys know about that royal family that got all inbred? I think they're called the Habsburgs. Was that it? The Habsburgs?
You mean the British royal family? Is that them?
No, it was like a European royal family, and they're all inbred.
Yeah, I think it's
the
Habsburg family.
Was it the Habsburg family? You want to check?
Most royal families are inbred, by the way.
Well, no, for sure. But it got me thinking as you're talking about this, like, why are we overseas? And, I thought about 1913, the start of the Federal Reserve. Some authoritarian, strong-minded individuals are, meeting on Jekyll Island, and they're like, we're going to create a centralized banking system. And then, they have kids who have kids. And then you had, Dr. Ron Paul on the show just come right out and say that there was a revolution when the government murdered its president, John F. Kennedy. And it's like, well, okay then. And I'm just thinking about it, and I'm like, that's like the kid of the Federal Reserve people. And now what we're dealing with is like the Habsburg offspring, which is our current military-industrial complex. Like, they're too inbred and deformed to properly function in terms of international policy. So while China is basically taking over, while they're doing negotiations with Saudi Arabia and Brazil to get off the US dollar, our Habsburg-esque military-industrial complex is like, we must conquer Ukraine. And you're like, for what, dude?
It is the Habsburgs. They're known for the distinctive Habsburg jaw. It's Habs.
Habsburg.
And it's like if you look at pictures of the Habsburg jaw, you'll see
they were like inbred or whatever.
Known for being inbred.
But these people aren't inbred. I think they know what they're doing because they always do it. And when it comes to losing, when it comes to human sacrifice, these people don't care if the United States loses. These people don't care if Ukraine loses. Ukraine has been used by many corrupted politicians, by many internationalists, by many globalists. There's a reason BlackRock and Goldman Sachs has all the contracts right now in Ukraine. There's a reason they don't care. Look what happened in Libya. Look what happened in Afghanistan. Look what happened in Iraq. These wars aren't meant to be won. We have to think from the perspective of these people don't care about you. They don't care about the United States. They don't care about how we look to the rest of the world. They care about their contracts. They care about their money. They care about their blood sacrifice, which essentially they're doing here when we could have had peace. We could have had negotiations. We could have had this conflict ended last year in April. But no, the Western leaders got involved, flew into Ukraine, and specifically made sure that this conflict was prolonged, which is absolutely insane, which is absolutely crazy. And now there's U.S. Special Forces operating inside of Ukraine with mission-critical functions. 14 U.S. troops. What are they doing exactly there? We don't know. 50 U.K. Special Forces, 15 French Special Forces, and 17 Latvian Special Forces. Over 100 U.S. personnel in Ukraine right now. And
how many personnel?
About 100 U.S. personnel in Ukraine right now. Wow. Those are the estimates according to these documents that came out there. And even Donald Trump came out and said during the Syrian war, he killed a whole bunch of Russians because the Russians were fighting there. How many troops are we losing? Are we even going to be documenting how many U.S. forces or U.S. soldiers? I mean, there's people who volunteer there, but officially this changes the game as well.
Trump also, responded to Tucker, essentially acknowledging that Nord Stream was perpetrated by us. He said it in a kind of...
He alluded to it in a very sneaky way.
He said it.
He was like, I don't want to make us look... Tucker asked him, who blew up the pipeline? He's like, well, I don't want to make our side look bad.
Right.
But it definitely wasn't the Russians. But again, Trump's also analysis of Putin and Xi and Kim was also pretty interesting. That interview was also... the dynamics between Tucker and Trump, that's also something people are really looking into as well that was really eye-opening.
But what does any of this have to do with my beer?
That's a good point, Tim. What does it? It might get a little more expensive. Maybe it'll get cheaper. Who's to say?
We had Jesse Kelly on the show the other day, and he was mentioning that Bud Light, this story was the first time his neighbors actually asked him about politics. And the reason I bring that up is I'm just like, okay, so basically U.S. has personnel on the ground. We are actively at war with Russia without a declaration from Congress. We've dumped $100+ billion into this. Russia wants to send nuclear weapons to Belarus. China is getting Brazil and other countries off the U.S. dollar. And, well, the U.S. empire is all coming crashing down, or whatever it is you want to call it. And the only thing that animates people is Budweiser.
What I think about this transparency concept, we talk a lot about transparency. It's a big part of Minds and why the code is free and open source is because, this guy Jack, this 21-year-old that is arrested for leaking the documents. You actually talked about it with Joe Rogan on his show.
Mm-hmm. This was before his name came out.
And it's like you posed a question like, if every piece of data was released, would it even be a good thing? Like it could very well just cause massive war. So I don't know if it's always good to leak every
No, not every document, but we need vastly more transparency than we have. I'm curious, how specific, did he go through any kind of like a legitimate whistleblower process for this?
No, he just put them on Discord.
He put him on Discord.
So that's kind of asking for backlash.
Yeah, but
There's no such thing as a legitimate whistleblower process.
Well, I mean, there is.
And then they get ignored or shut down or told to shut up, just like William Binney has.
Fair enough. No, I'm not saying that he should have like gone and asked permission. I'm saying that if you in terms of redacting names and in certain circumstances, there is like a due diligence process that can make sense to be a little bit careful.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. I feel like all of these platitudes are just comforts for those who want the rules for themselves. That is to say, if the United States does something like Barack Obama blows up a kid, who's going to hold them accountable? They get away with it. But if any other country does it, you better believe they're going to come out and cite all of the rules and read every single one of them. So when I think of whistleblowers, they say, well, he should have gone through the process. Right. The process by which he goes to a commanding officer and says, they're lying about this and this needs to go to the public. And they say, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Have a nice day. Yeah. The process and the rules are intended to stop people from telling the American people what's actually going on and how they're lying, cheating, and stealing and destroying our country.
No, it also tells the world.
But I mean, go ahead.
Oh, all the Russian people know now, too. That's part of the problem.
They knew, though. You think in Russia they really believed 200,000 soldiers had been killed? They lived there.
No, but I don't think they knew that there were 100 American
The Russians actually came out with a very interesting statement when these documents first came out, calling it a psyop. So the Russians and the Russian, I believe, Ministry of Defense a couple of days ago, as soon as these documents came out, said, we don't believe them. We think that they're being deployed as a way of tricking us. So that was their initial response to all of this officially by the Russian government. But also a lot of other things came out from these documents, including how the United States wasn't just infiltrating and spying on the Russian government and the Russian military, but also the South Korean military, the Israeli military, and the Israeli government as well. And there was a lot of techniques some people argue have been disclosed here. I don't know. I haven't seen that personally myself, but that's the argument we're seeing against some of these leaks being released, that the number of spies, the number and techniques of how they infiltrated these institutions was also leaked. I haven't seen that yet, but that's some of the talking points that I'm seeing out there.
This could be a psyop.
It's worth pointing out that he's only 21 years old. I mean, as whistleblowers come, Snowden was young and he was, 29? This guy Jack would know that he's going to get done on the Espionage Act. He's thrown his life away and he's a kid.
Yeah.
Is that not at all suspect how young he is? Like,
perhaps, or maybe not, young and reckless.
Certainly reckless.
Yeah. I wonder if it is a psyop, because think about how perfect it would be if you want to get misinformation. Oh no, a leaked document. Yeah. And then it might, like, basically what happens is when the media said some of the information may be altered by the United States, so that when it goes out, it's a psyop to manipulate and confuse the other countries that are involved in this.
But it is interesting to see the corporate media's response here, because when Donald Trump was president of the United States, when there was leakers within his administration, they were cheered, they were celebrated, they were promoted. Their story many times was just reported without even question of verification sometimes. But now we have a leaker, and then the Washington Post and the New York Times track it down with Bellingcat. Track them down and hunt them down.
Well, that's a big component of the story that people have been pointing out, that the mainstream media basically acted like an intelligence operation.
Extension of the state. Yeah.
Yep, for the state. That is, when the government was like, hey, who leaked this? All of the news outlets said, we're going to hunt this person down and figure out who it is. But when it came to Donald Trump's leakers, they were like, we must protect whistleblowers. That's the game being played today, man.
Yeah, I mean, we need sweeping whistleblower protection reform. I think that's a new type of legislation that just needs more focus. That's what we got with the AARO program, which is the All Domain Anomaly Research Office for UFO whistleblowers. So now in the NDAA, there's now specific protection. They're doing an audit of the whole government for UFO related information, but the reason people weren't coming forward before is because they're terrified of coming forward.
What was that thing you guys were talking about? Who was talking about this? That Tucker Carlson said that whenever troops go like meet aliens or whatever, their brains melt or something like that.
Tucker Carlson was on the Full Send podcast, and he described a situation where he was looking into a story where he was hearing of a bunch of U.S. personnel and U.S. soldiers that had interactions with aliens that had essentially their brains scrambled. So again, I'm paraphrasing here from listening to Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson explains it a little bit better, but essentially describing how he has made contact with people who have verified that there are other entities out there, and when they do get near human beings, they essentially destroy their mind.
I would guess that it's more like that Cuban thing. Remember they were doing that like noise weapon or low frequency?
Yeah,
that they're
Havana syndrome.
Yeah,
what if
something
that's
like that.
aliens?
I think it's human. I think it's human technology, and they're just putting chimeric animals. If they or if they think they saw something that's not human, they might be right, but it could be like
Wait,
part human.
You mean the people who think they saw aliens?
Yeah, if they show them, if they're going to show somebody something and try and give them a red herring, they may be doing like genetic work on animals and be like, look, it's from another planet, and then in the background they've got like vorpal sound just messing with your DNA, and the people are.
I don't know about all that, but I will
remember.
say, I think if you believe the U.S. military and U.S. government is not doing genetic experimentation and hasn't been for the past 100 years, you're a crazy person. You guys ever hear of the Human Z?
No.
I have.
Human Z. You know what that is, right?
I could
Chip
guess.
The Russian human Z.
Yeah, and
Super-
so the story is that the Russians. Here's the crazy thing about the story. Chimps. So you can't just hybridize two like species willy nilly. You have to actually figure out which species has to be the female and which has to be the male. And I'll tell you the horrifying part about it. Human babies are big. Chimp babies are small. Chimps have smaller bodies. Humans have bigger bodies. So when they were doing these experiments, the urban legend tells that you can't take male parts and put it into a female chimp because the female chimp is too small. You got to put the male chimp stuff in the human female, and the human female has to carry the chimp human hybrid. So urban legend is the Soviets actually forcefully took women and made them do this. Now, I don't know about all that. Maybe. My point is this. Yes, the US government, the Chinese government, they're all doing this stuff. And there was a big story a couple years ago. China is trying to make super soldiers. They are doing human genetic modification to make, was it Ubermensch? Is that what it is? Like
Yeah.
superhumans?
Yeah, Ubermensch. Yeah, Superman.
Yep.
That was the Nazi plan, I think, was the Ubermensch.
Yep. So I look, if I don't know whatever it is you're talking about, Ian, because we were talking about aliens, we were talking about war. I don't know where all this came
Scrambling
from,
the brains with vibration, like Havana syndrome.
but I'm into it.
We're in
so.
a race car, just turning. You made me think of the heart attack, the CIA heart attack gun, which we know exists. That came out in
In the
church-
70s, in the Church Commission hearings.
Yeah. So
Now
do you know
imagine
details
what they
about that?
have now.
Right.
Exactly.
Whenever ever I hear anything about alien anything, I immediately think it's human. How could this be human technology? There's so zero to no evidence, very little evidence of any animal come from another planet. There's none.
You know, my favorite thing about UFO stories is they tend to take place near U.S. military bases and experimental research facilities. So there's like one story that was in the press, and this one just blew my mind. This story made it to the press. It was like, naval pilot tells story of strange objects he sees in the sky. And then it's like, in 2013, he was flying a routine mission. He brought the report to his supervisors who said, this is nothing and ignore it. And he was shocked. What if this was the Russians? What if it was the Chinese? How could they ignore this report? And I was just like, maybe it's because they know what it is and you don't, so shut your mouth. And then the best part was, the sighting was 100 miles out from a U.S. experimental aircraft facility. And I'm like, so basically, a dude with limited clearance is doing a routine exercise, and sees some experimental aircraft, reports it to his super commanding officer, who's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And then it's like, oh, they're covering up aliens. And it's like, bro, that's our base. Those are our weapons. Shut up.
Yeah, they have a technology called supercavitation, and what they do is they mount lasers on the front of an aircraft and then force them into each other and shoot this area in front of the aircraft, causing space-time to cavitate and create a vacuum in front of the plane, which draws the plane forward and causes it not to create a sonic boom. It still makes noise, but it doesn't make the
Is that
boom.
real?
Yeah, supercavitation.
What?
This is according to Jeremy Riss, who was on Brett Weinstein's podcast talking about it. So there's technology like that. If you see real craft,
That sounds like warp drive.
it's definitely a start towards that, because if you can evacuate space in front of you, you'll be pulled forward. That's a big part of warping through space.
Well, I mean, that would only work in an atmosphere.
This is mostly the density of the atmosphere.
Right. You said warping space time. I don't know about all
you're
that.
right, you're right.
You're talking
You're
about
right.
creating a vacuum in front of you, which causes
It's warping the
Water
atmosphere.
and pressure
Thank you for
pulling you towards
correcting
it.
that. It's warping the atmosphere. They may have technology that warps space-time. I don't know. And then there's also the idea of talking plasma, which is where they focus lasers from a distance and they coordinate them, and where they triangulate, it creates like a ball of plasma that they can move around really fast, like a laser pointer. And they're probably doing it from space stations or,
right. It's
or
basically
satellites.
just a 3-dimensional laser pointer, and we chase it around like a cat.
And so there's both. And it'll confuse people. If they think they're the same thing, they're going to be very confused. Because there probably are actual craft that are able to move, to be pulled along.
How did we
essentially.
start talking about aliens and stuff? Did Bill, you bring it up?
I probably am guilty.
You brought up the Arrow
I'm always-
program.
Were you
Yeah,
talking
Arrow.
with Rogan about it or something?
Yeah, well, we were talking about the Arrow program, which is like a well-funded government program for researching this now. And then we also went deep into the Virginia, Brazil incident, but I don't know how deep you guys want to go.
What is
What's
it?
the incident?
There's an amazing documentary that came out earlier this year called Moment of Contact by James Fox. And it's basically, Virginia, Brazil is basically the Roswell of Brazil. So, you go there and it's like huge UFOs. It's
Say
like
Virginia?
Virginia.
Virginia. I was like, wait, Virginia.
Yeah. It's,
Virginia.
It's similar. Yeah, it's weird. But hundreds of people throughout the city saw objects. Actually, these girls saw beings apparently, and the whole wing of the hospital had to get demolished because the smell from this thing apparently was so bad it infected the whole building. And this is not like the mayor of the city currently took James Fox like all through the city. The mayor of Virginia is like totally all in on it. They have multiple.
When did it happen?
It happened in '96.
Wow.
So there's a lot of documentation, and it's either the biggest UFO story in history or the greatest hoax of all time. But like the sheer number of people who saw the military checkpoints all over the city, like you guys got to watch the documentary. I'm not let's do it. Let's go deep next time after you've all seen it, because it is completely wild. I was blown away.
So bringing it back, I guess if the question was the U.S. really does have this crazy advanced technology, why aren't they using it in Ukraine? Or why aren't they using it in general?
Well, if we have it, it doesn't necessarily mean that we know how to use it. If there's any kind of recovered materials.
Well, no, I mean like the U.S. is developing weapons and stuff.
Because these wars aren't meant to be won; they're meant to be prolonged.
Yeah, good point.
And when you continue the war, you of course have so much of a not only profit incentive but control incentive. You have to understand the Ukrainian country also controls a lot of the wheat that's exported all around the world. Russia also, when it's being hit with its sanctions, specifically controls a lot of energy around the world as well. So limiting the amount of energy, limiting the amount of food around the globe is something that a lot of these top globalists are really into and love having that kind of position of power. And essentially, I don't think they care if Ukraine wins or loses at the end of the day, especially with how they're treating them, especially with how they're prolonging this battle. Now, there's a bunch of black projects. There's a bunch of black budgets. There's a reason trillions and trillions of dollars usually goes missing from the Pentagon every few so years. What are they spending that money on? Well, probably more ways of destroying the world. But they also know at the same time, we use this latest kind of insane technological advancement the Russians will probably use something as well, or the Chinese will use something as well. And they're also developing a lot of this kind of doomsday style technology. I mean, the Russians are openly talking about a Poseidon nuclear bomb that will send a tsunami of nuclear
They have
waste
it.
towards, well, they say they have it. The Russians say they have a lot of stuff. Doesn't mean they always do. They kind of also talked about how great their latest tanks were, and we really haven't seen them kind of highlight that in the battlefield that's happening in Ukraine. So again, a lot of this is also saber rattling. A lot of this is also just kind of posturing. So when we look at this larger perspective and picture, it is a very complex one, but when you really look at it, yes, there is technology that could kill us, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's tsunamis, whether it's nuclear bombs. Nuclear bombs are still just archaic, old, decades, very, very ancient weapons compared to the latest technological advancement that they have now. What exactly do we have? What do they have? Who the hell knows? But it's scary and it's terrifying that we're doing all this, including when we look at the realm of bioweapons that could be used here and genetically specific weapons that could be used here, especially with so many governments harvesting people's genetic codes and DNA code.
Have you guys seen the video of the ship with the laser on it? They point the laser at the drone, and the drone bursts into flames.
Isn't it like an invisible laser? It's like a microwave or something?
It's infrared, I'm pretty sure. So not microwave. I don't think that's a laser. It's infrared. So it's this gigantic lens, and it just points at the drone, and the drone just bursts into flames and then crashes.
That's how you beat drone swarms.
What kind of
Or
range?
humans.
What kind of range can it?
I think it was like thousands of feet or some ridiculous. It was nuts.
Wow.
And I'm just wondering if they have that kind of stuff, like they don't use it on people. Like, imagine if they set that up around Ukraine. They built these big towers. I guess the issue is electricity. If the power's being cut.
Yeah, because if you have a power source like fusion generator, in addition to that, you don't want to end the war. The military-industrial complex maybe wants to prolong the war. You don't want to lose your most advanced piece of technology to the enemy, just in case. If you have like one or two fusion-powered high beam weaponry, you don't want to put it in Ukraine, because if someone gets a hold of that,
I don't think it's as simple as, we don't want to win the war. I think that there are major factions of the military industrial complex, contractors and whatnot, who have like a ton of financial interest in the war. But, a lot of people in the military, I think, do want to. So it's not black and white like
Did
that.
you-
Like,
I agree.
You know
with
what I'm
that.
saying?
I agree.
Yeah. I want to ask you guys. Did you guys hear about that cow farm or whatever that blew up? Mm-hmm. What was it? 18,000 cows. Is that how many it was?
apparently they burned to death or something.
Where was
yeah.
that? Where's that?
So I don't know. Do you guys know where it was? Someone
I'm
look
going to
that
look it up.
Because I don't have the story pulled up, but we just started talking about war and collapse and all that stuff. And then what I'm seeing from a lot of commentators, I'm seeing from a lot of older people that are saying, like, all of my life I have never seen this many food plants and farms blow up, burn down, or otherwise just be destroyed.
That was in Texas, actually.
It was in Texas. People and I'm seeing people be like, it feels like something else is going on here. And we're talking about Ukraine. Ukraine's the breadbasket of Europe. I gotta wonder how much of this may be intentionally disrupting and taking out food supplies. Like, what are the chances? I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying, what are the chances that powerful global elites fear climate change to the point that they would actively destroy food plants, farms, and Ukraine, the breadbasket of Europe, for the purpose of reducing food supply and limiting population growth? Again, not saying that's true. I'm saying, like, all of these things seem to be happening. So I'll put it this way. Whether or not there's any grand conspiracy there, because I don't see any evidence for that, I'm just saying that food plants are being shut down through fires, cows are burning to death, chicken farms, all of that stuff. And then you've got the Ukrainian war. You've got it was the Dutch farmers being told to stop farming. All of those things happening at once. And I'm like, whether it's on purpose or otherwise, food production is shutting down.
I think one of the phenomena at play there with those sort of elites isn't necessarily, like you, I haven't seen evidence of it, although I've read most of Klaus Schwab's books. And what there is evidence is that he has a completely different set of priorities. And if your priority is to defeat this great supposed climate apocalypse, you just forget about the other things. So I think that's maybe more at play. And that's certainly the case in the Netherlands with the Dutch farmer revolts, where they just prioritize their green policy, completely neglecting the farmers themselves, and that's why they stormed up against
Yeah,
it.
and there's an example in California with them shutting down gas-powered cars. There's say like by 2035 they're not going to sell gas-powered cars, but then they say, hey, we're having a heat wave. Don't charge your electric car, please. the short-sightedness and heavy-handedness of motion with government sometimes. I agree with you.
What's
It can be
It's
your-
not short-sighted.
completely
I think it's done on purpose. To be honest with you, sorry, Bill.
Well, it's interesting that you actually read Klaus Schwab's books. I want to hear a little bit more about that. Like, what's your feeling from him
The
reading his
most
words?
terrifying thing, and if there's one book to read, it's not the Great Reset, it's the Great Narrative, because in this book, he tries to create what is essentially a new quasi-religion with a new moral structure. In fact, there's even a chapter called Morals and Values, where they replace the metaphysic that normal religions have, let's say with a god, with climate catastrophe. And I mean, all his literature is a total joke. You know, he keeps saying, I don't want to catastrophize, but throughout all of it, it is like climate catastrophe, climate catastrophe, climate catastrophe. And that's the new God he's trying to create, and he's trying to build a moral structure on top of that. And that's how he's trying to unite the world instead of essentially religion.
It sounds like the perspective is, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no climate crisis, and he's creating a unifying enemy to try and create a moral structure around for the sake of globalism.
I think he thinks there is a climate crisis. I think he believes if you read the UN reports on the climate and he takes the worst scenarios. They're usually written as unlikely or highly unlikely, but he'll take the worst case scenarios and think we need to do something about this. So I'm not sure how. As far as you can have good faith with Klaus Schwab, right? Good faith scenario is that he really believes that.
Well,
and he'll do anything to
guys, this has me scared. We got to help Obama. We got to help him. He must not know this. He bought waterfront property in Martha's Vineyard. Someone's got to send him an email or
He
something.
texted me earlier. He's
let him
freaking
know.
out. No,
It's imminent.
He didn't text me.
Billy Moobs Gates also beachfront property.
no.
Do they know?
Bill,
I don't. It's
we got to help him.
Well, the thing
we
is,
got to send him an email and let him know that the water levels are going to rise.
There could be a climate catastrophe if we do nothing. But the problem with these models is they don't take into account mitigating factors or changes in technology
hold on.
or carbon capture.
I got an answer
absolutely
for
right.
you guys. In all seriousness, when everyone says if there really was a climate catastrophe, why would Bill Gates and Barack Obama and many others buy waterfront property? And my answer is it's simple, because you will own nothing and you will be happy. Their plan is I can own this waterfront property because we're going to solve the problem by taking away everything from you.
Yeah, we're gonna solve it and I justify it because I'm buying the carbon credits. I can fly
They're not
private.
justifying everything. They don't need to justify anything. If let's say let's say this. It is a fact. Ocean levels will rise if we do nothing. Barack Obama and Bill Gates are like, oh, but we are going to do something. We're going to take away the property rights of the regular working people. That will solve the ocean level crisis, and I can buy my property.
But how will that solve the crisis?
If humans stop consuming and stop producing and stop reproducing and have all their property taken away, the mentality is this will avert the climate crisis, meaning the powerful elites are allowed to keep their property, keep their jets, keep their cars. So it's not that Obama doesn't believe it's happening. He just believes he's going to win.
Or he doesn't actually believe that there is a climate catastrophe. In the same
For
way
sure.
that they all take private jets to get to Davos, if they truly believed it, they wouldn't take the private
This is
jets.
my-
It could be
no,
the
no, no.
same phenomenon. They don't actually believe it deep down.
This is my point. I think it's possible they do believe it, and it's simple enough that they're saying, okay, if we all keep flying on private jets, it's bad for the environment. So let's take away the property rights of the poor people so we don't have to stop. Get it?
John,
I get it, but
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, I was just saying. John Kerry actually recently got confronted. How do you justify flying private so often? And he just point blank said, like, I buy the carbon credits to offset it, and he thought that it was all good.
The carbon credit's a total scam as well. If you dig into that stuff, it's almost impossible to guarantee the carbon credits. They've got to, let's say you're building trees, you've got to find a country that's politically stable, that the trees can last 30, 40, 50 years, actually grow. If you dig into that stuff, it's a total con.
Well, so I want to ask you, because you're reading Klaus Schwab's book. Is this a new phenomenon, or did something happen to wake you up? Because I'm just imagining you're hanging out with your band, and they're writing a song, and then just over beers, you're like, "Have you guys read this Klaus Schwab stuff?" And they're like, "Winston, what are you talking about?"
I've been concerned about Davos and the WEF for a long time, I'd say. Basically, I have an allergy to elitists, certainly in elitists, unelected, unget-riddable types. I've had that, and my family, and I have journalists in the family, and this is the kind of conversations we have. So I've been interested in that stuff a long time, and I think seems like you fellas, you see the stuff they say, like you'll own nothing, you'll be happy, and you think, bloody hell, what the hell is this? And why on earth are my elected officials, why is my Prime Minister going to Davos? Why is it's almost likely that the Labour Party will be in power in Britain, and Keir Starmer, who's leader of the Labour Party, he was off at Davos. Why are these people all going and in the conversation with these unelected elites like Klaus Schwab, who you can't get rid of, who are dictating the conversation? Why are they going there?
It's the Coachella of politics.
It's exactly like that.
You know what would be cool, though? If, like, at Davos, in their highly secured facility, is this machine called the Progenitor device that connects to base reality outside the simulation, where all the world leaders communicate with the 17-year-old who's playing Sim Earth. That's just it. Nothing. There's no big conspiracy. It's
the occult is a big part of people that get really, really rich and they have not much more to gain. They start going inward. Maybe Luke, you can explain more about that. I know I've seen stuff. I've read stuff. I don't know for sure.
Luke, is Bohemian Grove still happening?
Yes. So is the Bilderberg meeting.
But the Bilderberg is not nearly as occult as Bohemian.
Hold on.
That we know of.
I got to say this. Remember when Bilderberg was a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, they first told us it doesn't exist, and if you think it does exist, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. Then they said, oh, it does exist, but nothing really happens there. It's just the world's most powerful people coming together in secret, meeting together and having off-the-record meetings as they arrest members of the press like myself trying to report on it. Nothing to see there. And then they're like, oh, yeah. Little tidbits here from the New York Times, the Washington Post admitting that this is where politicians are selected to be vice president. This is where major decisions are being made specifically with the larger geopolitical perspective. At Bilderberg last year, there was a NATO member that was able to, of course, achieve NATO member status. That was first discussed at this Bilderberg meeting. I'm going to look at the particular details of that and get back to you guys here in a little bit. But as you were saying, Bill, it's not that they're playing politics. Politics is just theater to them. They're playing a whole different game and a whole different perspective here. And what you guys are joking about is the actual serious things that they're discussing. Yuval Harari gives lectures about how there's going to be useless human beings out there and how we need to pacify them by giving them drugs and video games. And when we look at what's happening, in society,
is he wrong?
Well, yes, he's wrong. He's absolutely he's absolutely wrong. Because they're the ones building the technological advancements. They're the ones a part of the fourth industrial revolution, creating this situation where we have the haves and haves not.
I just want to point this out, though. I don't believe the end result that these people are preaching is the appropriate response. But I certainly think there is a cognitive dissonance in complaining about the woke cult, but then also saying there aren't useless people out there. I guess you can say that the woke cult is the useful people for these autocrats and dictatorial warmongers. They want a mindless zombie horde to do their bidding. But I look at it like I think we do have a problem. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know everything about climate change. I don't. I think it's plausible that overconsumption can lead to any kind of pollution or environmental disruption. I think that's a fair point. I'm not going to pretend like I know enough, and I don't trust people who buy beachfront property and then tell me to sell my car or whatever. But I also think you go to these big cities and you will see nothing but useless people. And I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm not trying. They don't have to be useless, but the problem is many of them are listless and purposeless, and then they seek out authoritarianism. They support the worst of the worst ideologies. They actively disrupt and destroy. So, not that I agree with that guy who's kind of a nightmarish despot. I do think it's important to point out we have a cultural problem in the U.S. where we have a large swath of people who don't contribute anything but just drag the system down.
Yeah. Combine that with the fact that they also don't have a god, right? So they get behind, let's say it's the woke religion or the environmentalist religion, all these different quasi pseudo-religions filling the void, and they have meaningless lives. It's a serious issue that we have to address. We have to create meaningful lives for people. So in that sense, much as Yuval Noah Harari puts my back up and I get very nervous with the stuff he says, that I think you're right. We have a purpose crisis in the West.
Let's pull up this story from the Post Millennial. Check this out. Video shows reinstated Tennessee State Rep Justin Jones stopping cars and assaulting drivers in the summer of 2020. This is what I'm talking about. So we were just talking about this idea of useless people. You've got two trains of thought happening right now. This, Yuval Harari, is that his name?
Yuval Noah Harari, yeah.
Noah Harari. He's talking about these useless eaters, but these are like the Davos group people who are more, comic book villainy. But I do think that there may be a separate perspective on how to deal with the problem. Their view, I think, is dark. The global, the Davos group, all this stuff, they're like, you will own nothing and you will be happy. My view of dealing with the useless eaters, or whatever it is he calls them, is to provide purpose and meaning.
Exactly.
So I look at this story. This story is extremely important because this is an elected Democrat state rep, state rep, who is attacking vehicles in the summer of 2020 and then gets elected to office. This guy reportedly assaulted members of the Tennessee legislature in 2019, throwing coffee at them, hot coffee, and was banned from the Capitol building. He is a violent extremist who now holds a seat of power. And when he was expelled for joining the insurrection, the Tennessee Capitol, they reinstate him. I do not see our system maintaining itself if these people are taking seats of power. And I warned this would happen in 2018. People told me I was crazy when I said this stuff will reach the highest levels of government. Next stop, federal government. And what happens when you have Antifa, violent Antifa extremists getting elected to Congress, which is already on the horizon? I mean, AOC is on the borderline of being a far left extremist. Granted, she still plays ball with the establishment, but next up, the next 4 years, the next 8 years, we're going to start seeing psychopaths like this sitting in the Senate. And they're going to be advocating and defending more violence like this. Then the system breaks.
Well, one of the things, and there's a lot about this story that's shocking, but this story is only really covered, as far as I could find, on the Post Millennial. If this was the opposite party, it would be not only legacy of mainstream media across America, it would be worldwide news. That is, imagine that there was a Republican who was involved in January 6th, actually part of that. We would never hear the end of it.
They tried making that the narrative, saying that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene was giving tours or something, trying to insinuate that there was pre-planning on behalf of the Republicans, which is all just utter nonsense. Yeah. But yes, if this was any Republican, it would be international
And
headlines.
why don't the Democrats just come out and condemn it? It's simple. Condemn it, and then they'll look more reasonable.
You know what I think? Have you seen Kingsman, the first one, the movie?
Years ago.
So the villain is a tech billionaire who believes the world is overpopulated. So he wants to preserve all of the wealthy individuals that he likes and gives them these devices to protect them, and then gives away free cell phones, which when he can press a button, they'll emit a sound that makes everybody go crazy and kill each other. It's really funny how they make this movie. And this guy is like, the earth is overpopulated, so it's giving itself a fever and it's killing everybody. That's basically how he talks. I'm imitating him. And so the premise of the movie is tech billionaire wants to kill billions of people to save the earth. Then you look at stuff like this and you're like, why is it that, these Davos group individuals, these billionaires and these Democrats don't understand that their policies destroy cities, that they're supporting violent people? Why is it that you get a video of a dude filling a black garbage bag with products at a Walgreens and you can't do anything to stop him? It's like, because they're on the side of the villain in the movie Kingsman. Their mentality is let the system be destroyed by itself to save the planet.
Tim, I think you're onto something quite interesting there philosophically, because most of the great evils, if not the vast majority, taken out in the world were people who philosophically believed they were doing the right thing. The communists, Stalin, thought he was doing the right thing. I'm sure there were psychopaths amongst them. Perhaps Hitler was one. The Nazis, they thought they were doing the right thing, and that's how they're able to do such evil. If you believe you're doing the right thing, you can do the absolute unimaginable atrocities. And I think that analogy of the Kingsman is probably apt for that.
And that's just it. These people
they're doing good.
The useless eaters that guy describes. This is how he views them. And so what better way to reduce, the saying is, you are the carbon they are trying to reduce. What better way than let the system fall apart? Stop maintaining it, let it fall, and you'll cut population down, or at least population growth. And I'll put it this way. Bill Gates has a TED Talk where he says, if we work hard enough in these areas, we can reduce population growth by, what do you say, like 10 or 15% or something like that? Now, a lot of people immediately came out and said, he's talking about reducing population by 10 or 15%. No. He said population growth. His whole bit publicly is, too many people are coming too fast. Let's slow that down. But of course,
It's the opposite is true, by the way.
well, my point is that position makes no sense. You can't be like, we have too many people, let's just have too many people slower. You either think there's too many people and there should be less of them, or you don't think there's too many people. But continue.
Well, the real problem, and the thing that I am most concerned about everything, is population decline. That we're going to have an aging population with, and this is happening now across the world, where I think most of the countries, if I'm not mistaken, you might need to fact check me on this, are now population growth is in decline. So even in Africa now, the average amount of children per family has gone from 7 to 4, I say, and it's going in that direction. What you're then going to have is an old population who are not working, having to be supported by the working population, which is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And what happens in that
Old people die.
old people die, but it continues, that phenomenon continues as the population declines. In fact, Hungary is the only country in the world that are implementing policy to encourage mothers to have more children, and that should be far more concerning to the elite, not Hungary.
Poland
of
is
course-
too,
of
and
course-
so
wait.
is China as
Is that
well.
right?
Why would it be concerning to the people who want less people? The global elites, the people like Bill Gates who come out and say there should be less people, are probably happy to hear that there's less people. And I think the answer to this is very, very simple for anybody who's listening. There's two things you can do. Everyone says, Tim, what can I do? I hear about all these bad things. What is going on here? Two very, very simple things you can do. The first, don't buy Anheuser-Busch products. No more Budweiser, no more Bud Light. I think Michelob's in there, Modelo, Shiner Bock. Get it all out of there, figure it out, and buy a different beer brand. It sounds absurd, but that's true. But more importantly, the real point I was going to make is have a bunch of babies.
What you mentioned,
Have 10 babies.
What you mentioned is happening, but it's happening on a grander level in the Western world. So populations aren't replacing the population that is dying off, especially in places like Europe, especially in places like Japan. And these crashes are going to have significant ramifications, not just for the economy, but for society in large. And when you look at the actual numbers, you look at the actual stats, we're not dealing with too many people. We're dealing with a problem that's going to be very severe because of too little of people. And Elon Musk talks about this all the time. Bill Gates, still for some reason, Klaus Schwab and a lot of elites, too many people in this world. And when you look at all these kind of soft policies, when you look at policies that could be described as fifth generational warfare, especially when it comes to people not having a family unit, especially when it comes to people cutting off their reproductive organs, when it comes to people being poisoned by microplastics or seed oils or chemicals that are incentivized and, of course, paid for by tax subsidies, all of those things coalesce under situations and circumstances where people are less fertile, having less babies, having less families. And this is really reaching a crescendo moment that's going to be tragic, not only for the future generations, but the future of the earth, which is going to have civilizational collapse very soon if this is not addressed. And the only countries addressing it is Hungary, Poland, and China that I've seen personally.
We don't need the government to address it. We need honest, moral people with good morals to just have babies.
We need both. But I also say there's geopolitical ramifications as well. Louise Perry has just written about this on Unheard. Currently, South Korea is in massive population decline. North Korea is still growing. So we'll be in a position, and I forget in how many decades, but not very long, where North Korea's population will be twice as much as South Korea. They'll be able to walk in. They'll just take over. It's geopolitically, it's a massive issue.
It's a huge issue. It's going to be tragic. It's going to be absolutely horrible because the trajectory that we're going on, especially with not just reproductive care or abortion, but more specifically with testosterone levels and sperm levels dropping dramatically to the point where
that's shocking.
Where people and some experts are saying we could soon reach a point in time in our lifetimes where males can't reproduce.
There's a crazy visualization. Serge, I don't know if you can pull this up, but it's if you search Engadget humans in a pile, it's basically a visualization of what all the humans, if they were just put into a pile, would look like.
Oh, like where it's like a big mound on.
Yeah, it's like a
Texas or
big
something.
mound. Yeah. And it's just,
There's a lot of people.
But it's not. No, but the point being, it's not that much space.
Here's right.
Yeah.
Here's what I think is going on. I think these powerful Davos type elites don't really care all that much about too many people. They care specifically about the useless eaters.
Yeah.
If these people were all doing functional tasks, then we would have, like, I'll put it this way. Maybe they don't believe, I don't know. These people seem to be crazy and out of their minds. If every person on this planet had a specialty and filled the quota of their economic requirement, meaning, let's say Earth could handle, 100 million rocket engineers. If every single person, if every single job in that was filled, and every single person was doing a legitimate job that advanced human civilization, we would be colonizing other planets already. We'd have warp drive. The problem is large portions of humans on this planet do nothing, and that's what these people think. They become nightmarish, despotic psychopaths who think, let's just get rid of people.
Yeah,
where the solution is, we should educate the next generation, give them purpose and give them morals, and craft the mechanisms by which humans become useful eaters.
That's actually what they want, I think. And what the concern is the age of automation we're entering a fourth industrial revolution now where artificial intelligence is taking over people's jobs. We'll have less need for human labor. And they are very concerned about the useless eaters revolting or losing their mind. They don't have enough.
This happened with the Luddites.
What exactly?
During the Industrial Revolution, people were like, I will not have this. And then you get the Luddites, people who just opposed the advancements.
I kind of disagree with you guys. I think they're more of a destructive force. I think they're more sociopathic. I think they're more deranged than you guys give them credit to, because even if everyone was productive and had a purpose and had a belief system and all that, I think throughout human history, there have always been a group of individuals or one individual trying to take control of the entire world. I think this is what it's really about at the end of the day. I think it's about control. I think it's about enslavement. No matter what we do, there is always going to be a group of sociopathic individuals trying to control everything for themselves, either for demonic reasons or just human reasons.
Now we'll stop and ask ourselves, what is going through their mind if that is the case? What is their goal and what is their desire? Is their desire something as one-dimensional as I just want to control things? Or is their goal something like I want eternal life?
There's another aspect to it, and I think this applies to Davos, is the banality of evil, which is that you have, for example, at Davos, you have a lot of politicians who are thinking, what am I going to do after I'm kicked out of office? I need a high-paying job. And then you have a lot of the corporates who are there who have a ton of money, but don't have the power that the politicians have, so they want to be there. So they have their own individual personal ambitions, which is driving them there. They might not be thinking, how do I control the world? Some of them, I'm sure, are thinking that, but I think a lot of them are thinking, how do I make my life better? And so they go along with what ends up being evil sort of phenomena of evil groups like that.
I have a feeling if we do create purpose and productivity, that it will take some of the burden off of Klaus Schwab's mind. Because I don't look at him as like a violent psychopath that wants to burn. I think they're trying to prevent World War III, and they're desperate. And so they're like, put them in pods. I don't know.
What?
But look, it doesn't matter.
I mean,
Ultimately,
I disagree.
Benefit
so
of the
much.
doubt at the very least.
I disagree a lot.
Look at this guy attacking the motorist, right? This guy thinks he's stopping World War III. This guy thinks he's stopping climate change. But he's clearly a deranged psychopath who's doing nothing but attacking random innocent motorists.
Yeah,
Klaus Schwab's no different.
Yeah, he thinks he's doing good, but what he doesn't know, or he's taking a risk on, is that centralizing authority has never really worked on the human
But
experiment.
it has always been something that many people have tried to achieve throughout human history. And no matter how many people they slaughter and enslave, that is always their end goal and has always been their end goal. And to think that this doesn't exist now when it existed all throughout human history is very naive, because now with the technology, now with so much power, with so much influence, with so much wealth concentrated against so many few individuals, they have an abundant amount of resources. They have quantum computing. They have artificial intelligence. They have new technology that could essentially help them live forever while everyone else is going to be, of course, enslaved to this system that they're building all around us. And when we look at what they're incentivizing and we look at what they're attacking, what are they attacking? They're attacking religion. They're attacking purpose. They're attacking labor. They're attacking the middle class. They're attacking any human beings being productive, doing good things. What are they incentivizing? Social justice warrior woke causes like this. They're incentivizing a divide and conquer agenda that has people fighting each other. They're incentivizing a system that is essentially order out of chaos and creating this horrible situation where we're fighting each other and not even having real deep discussions about how big the rabbit hole goes and who's really in charge.
Because they don't want to be challenged.
Exactly.
You're right about the control, but I think they're more like the villain from Kingsman. They want people to erase themselves.
My question though
And
is
they are.
who's they? I mean, it's kind of tongue in cheek.
Davos? Klaus
Exactly.
Schwab?
Like Klaus
Bill Gates?
maybe has one motive, but Xi Jinping has another motive, and Joe Biden has a motive, and
Putin?
together, like maybe one of them is a
They're
violent
all like
psychopath.
mafia crime families, but they understand that if one family or if something else threatens the alliance or the game that they're playing, that they take them out. So when you look at everything, it's multiple factors, it's multiple organizations working together, and they have a shared goal. And obviously, sometimes they fight within each other, but they always make sure that the game continues and the game is rigged against you.
One of the reasons that the problems they identify are, for example, not poverty but inequality, or let's say it's the environmental crisis, is because those are issues that cannot be solved. The problems that they identify that cannot be solved from the ground up. Rather, that we need to hand over our power to the technocrats. And that's maybe where the power thing comes into play. That I think I probably agree with you.
As they're funneling and fueling the problems. Look at George Soros and how much money he's throwing at district attorneys. What has been the cause of George Soros spending about $1 million on every district attorney? What has happened? What's happening in America
there's a
right
mass,
now?
I just read this story earlier. There's a mass exodus out of New York, and there's a mass migration to Florida. They say just in the first quarter, 10,000 people swapped their New York state IDs for Florida IDs. New York's in a state of decay.
Hasn't happened since COVID. There's hundreds of thousands.
It's,
I've heard
all of these Democrat cities are just ripping themselves apart.
They vote blue and then they don't like the policies and they leave.
But it's remarkable that there is no way in my mind the mayor, people like De Blasio and now Adams, that the mayors or who's the current mayor of LA, but you had, I think it was Garcetti during lockdown. There's no way they did not know what they were doing. Like, I just don't. Gavin Newsom, for instance, he goes to Florida. You guys see this video?
Yep.
He goes to Florida and he says, authoritarian regime, DeSantis banning books. He knows he's lying. Like, there's no way he actually believes the things he says, which means the only conclusion is they're all evil.
He was arresting people for running businesses, for having a restaurant that was open. He was arresting people just for trying to live and survive in the state of California. And he has the balls to go to Florida and say, DeSantis is what? I mean, it's just so on your face. It's so ridiculous that it's
I got to say, though, guys,
insane.
If you're aware of what's going on, then you've already started making your plans to get away from these cities. You've left these cities. You've maybe gone to Florida or Texas or a rural area. You've perhaps purchased some chickens, which are now creating more of themselves. It's a really amazing thing they do. Not only do they make food for you, but that food could actually turn into more of them, which can then make more exponentially. So you're aware of what's going on. You're protecting yourself. You're learning. You're having a family. You're taking your kids out of school. The end result of this is the policies enacted by Democrats is just causing harm to their own constituents. They are promoting policies that sterilize their constituents, that cause their constituents to abort and destroy their own children, and then they bring about corruption in their own cities. It's almost like this. Imagine there was a civil war happening. Imagine there was an actual civil war, and it was Republicans versus Democrats, left versus right. I couldn't ask of anything more of Democrats, right? If you were on the right and you were like, we are going to war, here's my plan. We will infiltrate the seats of government in our opponents' cities and then enact policies that will erode and destroy those cities and cause their citizens to flee to us. Then we will control. Like,
They're self-destructing themselves.
And it all, like, if you told me what happened was Republicans infiltrated Democrat cities to destroy them, I'd be like, well, they're doing a good job of it. I can't see. Why else would they do these things? That's my point. Gavin Newsom knows he's lying. He knows he's destroying things. You can't look at, they have a map you can look up for San Francisco that shows you where all the poop is. I'm not exaggerating.
It's true. It's true.
It's like someone took Google Maps and then they made you can do a plugin or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty
The
accurate.
heat is emitting.
No, it shows little
Methane?
brown pins.
It's like Waze. You tag it.
There's brown pins.
Oh, you tag it.
Yes, and so what happens is someone, when they see poop, they will write down the address and put it in the map, and so the whole of San Francisco is one. It's all brown because every inch of it is covered in these pins. Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, these people know that is a problem. They don't care.
This is the part
they
of
do
it-
nothing to stop it.
I start to get nauseous at this part of the conversation because I had a crazy dream last night. A crazy dream, but I was the president, and we were like, "We did it. We finally did it. Let's go. We're gonna go sign the paperwork in your office." And I walk into my office, and a guy points a gun at me and shoots me in the heart. Like as I walked in, you cannot defeat the military-industrial complex. It cannot be stopped. So it's either get along or throw your body away. Is where I'm at. Other than that, I'm just like, let's just jam and make some hot music, and maybe we can convince everybody that way. Because even Klaus Schwab likes music. They have those weird singers, those weird musicians.
I remember that. That was very.
But when that happened, the guy shot me in the heart. I said, "This is a dream, and it's my dream." So I'm rewinding this, and then I went back and got the guy's name, and it started with an S. It was a very, very disconcerting dream, and it led me to think that if I pursue the political solution, I will be offed by the system. But there are other ways to solve this, and a lot of it is local governance and taking care of your family and your neighborhood. But I think you need to be aggressively creative. I think that's a bit, for me anyway, that's my path.
I agree with you on that. There's a lot, the political stuff, they're all fucking liars. But if you actually just start with loving your neighbor, just start at home. That's a bloody good start. And if everyone just started at home thinking, who's on my street, who can I help? Let's do this, let's look after our family. That's how you actually defeat it. The opposite, and forgive me if I get a bit churchy, lads, but the opposite of all this Davos stuff is the church, it's scripture, it's the Bible. That's literally the opposite. That's how you defeat it. But
Yeah, I mean, no, you're not changing anybody's mind if you can't have a good relationship with your family at home on Thanksgiving dinner. It's like being able to have conversations at home with your parents who you completely disagree with. Like, you have to have that skill. You're doomed without it.
Yeah.
And no one can. There's so many people who are abandoning their parents. They
talk of like trying to do all this change politics. You're absolutely right, Bill. Let's start by make amends with your family that since 2016 you're not able to have Thanksgiving anymore because they've got the wrong opinion, like one's a TERF, oh no, or one's woke, oh no. Actually, maybe try mend that first, worry about politics.
No, yeah,
second.
Here's the issue, though. Cenk Uygur had a masterful tweet today, and many people listening may be gasping or spitting out their water having heard me say that. He said that, I'll paraphrase, the right is willing to accept anyone who agrees so much as 5% with them, whereas the left will excise anyone who disagrees with 0.05% of their position. And he's completely correct. The Young Turks have been relentlessly slammed because Anna Kasparian said, "Don't call me a birthing person." I bring this up because you're talking about, mending that divide and everything. But I got to tell you, man, I think a lot of people who listen have tried to be that reasonable person talking to someone who is woke or in the cult and saying something as simple as like, well, let's talk about it. And they just get angry and say no.
Yeah, you got to make them the center of attention. It's kind of like you got to let them be selfish for a moment. A lot of people in the cult,
not just a moment. It can take years.
But it's the issue is,
and it's worth it.
If you have a relative who is a TERF, that's called trans exclusionary radical feminist. I want to point this out, by the way. They call anyone who is like against gender ideology a TERF, even if they're not feminists. Like, I gotta tell you guys, these conservative women are not feminists. Okay, so don't call them that. But I call them something else. But my point is this: if I guarantee you 100%, if you sit down with someone who is described as a TERF, they're going to have a conversation with you about what they think and why they think it. If you sit down with someone who we would describe as woke, 95% of the time, they will get emotional, angry, and reject the argument outright or just refuse to sit down with you at all.
In those situations, I find if you can stay calm, it's kind of like it erodes their anger. It takes time and patience. But if someone's freaking out and you stay calm the entire, it's contagious.
No, it makes them really angry, actually.
At first, maybe.
Well, this is like a common, well-known thing in debate. that if your opponent is getting flustered and you lower your tone and get more calm, it actually inverts and makes them angrier.
But the assumption you're making is that the conversation you're having is about the politics or about the philosophy. What about actually trying to remember all those other things that we have in common? And maybe just let's not talk about politics for a couple of years. Let's just remember there are more important things than politics. Important as politics are, important as these issues are. On a family level, okay, let's talk about football. Let's talk about some of those deeper things.
Well, let me give you a scenario then and ask you your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
I brought this up a couple weeks ago when I was hanging out in a poker room, and the guy to my left, we're playing a table. It's a nine player game. Funny guy. We are laughing, having a good time. Whenever you play at these tables, your side of the tables all whispering to each other, the other side's whispering. And we got this guy who is bluffing like crazy. So the dude to my left starts making some jokes. I'm laughing with him. He's nudging me and saying, look what he's doing. And we're ha 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 ha. Then politics comes up because of the economy. Naturally, when you're playing a game that involves money. And it got to the point where he said that he thought the January 6th defendants should all be executed for treason. And I'm like, okay, here's a guy who is laughing with me. We're having a good time. Man, we're almost friends. And then he says something as terrifying as that. How am I supposed to, like, I'll be honest, this guy was telling me a story about a dude who was criminally charged because Antifa surrounded his car. He fled and then got charged with attempted murder because he hit people as he was fleeing. And so I was like, you should put me in touch with this guy. Like, let's talk. And he goes, yeah, it's BS what they did to this guy. And I'm like, oh, okay, so me and this guy got something to agree on, and maybe we can solve these issues. And I would say the majority of our interaction was not political at all. The moment he said he believed that they should execute these guys, I'm like, I don't think.
So in that scenario, you're not going to actually achieve anything by talking about
Which is why I
trying to
stopped.
persuade them. So what you can just do is ask them loads of questions. Try and work out why it is that he's come to that conclusion, and maybe in asking the questions that he hasn't been asked by anyone because he hasn't met someone with different political positions or different opinions, he might go home and be like, you know what, maybe I was a bit wrong on that. You don't have to persuade him in the moment. Just ask him the questions. Because, by the way, it's also interesting, like an extremist like that, like how do you come to that? That's quite interesting. This
is like a regular guy. I think he said he worked construction, who's playing a game of poker, having a laugh on his day off, and then all of a sudden he says something as extreme as that, and that was like, to
He's
me,
probably just regurgitating it from,
he got
his
angry.
circle.
He
I got friends like that
angry.
from my
But
hometown.
this is the thing, like he got so angry about it is why I was just like, okay, like I'm gonna leave this guy be because I asked him when he said that, I was like, really executed? Wow. He said it in a different way, I'll mind you. He said it in a very, very gruesome and graphic way, to put it simply. And my response was, did you hear about what happened on May 29th with the leftists at the White House? And he goes, no, I don't know anything about that. And I was like, they set St. John's Church on fire, and Trump was forced in a bunker. He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. These people, I'm telling you, they were traitors. And then I'm just like, I'm done. I'm not.
He's responded well, because now he might, a month later, it'll be in his brain, and he'll have to deal with that. And I'm sure there'll be cognitive dissonance, and he might have to do that unpacking by himself, and it might be quite painful for that fella to do that unpacking. But you might have planted the seed. I think that's the correct way to deal with it.
Or you double down on his extremism, go even further, and then make him realize,
Luke's a plant.
maybe we should treat their children just like Barack Obama treated the children in the Middle East and bombed them during their weddings.
That actually is so that is a persuasion technique I have talked about before. It's called rapport extreme turn, where in order to change someone's mind, you have to approach them from further than their own position. So it's a really basic manipulation technique. The general idea is, the first thing, if someone presents to you an idea that you disagree with, the first thing is rapport. You completely agree with it. Now, in their minds, this lowers their defenses and they feel like you're part of their same tribe. The second is the extreme. Like Luke said, you double down and go further than they would find reasonable, forcing them in the other direction.
Yeah, it shows them where they may end up if they stay on the path of extremism. You're like, okay, I see what you mean.
Or just how ridiculous it is, or just question their original stance.
It's actually much simpler than that. You make yourself their ideological opponent in the other direction, which forces them in your direction.
I have friends that say kind of stuff like that guy you were talking about, Tim, just weird, extreme things about racism, and like friends from over the years. And I realize, like, I can handle it in a conversation, and you can easily ask questions and get past it and find out the psychology. But when people post those things on social media in text, they get ripped out of context and haunt the person for their entire
It's
life.
not the medium. The texts, social media, absolutely not the medium. If you can avoid doing it, I think it has to be the best face to face. But even a phone call is better. There's so much in tone. You lose friends by text if you have those conversations.
I've actually written off talking about politics in text.
That's a wise principle to have, I think.
It's helped.
Well, it's similar to how, like, if you're walking down the street in New York City and you see people handing out propaganda or, you know, just crazy people mouthing off, like, people will just walk by crazy people in New York City. They wouldn't ask them to get banned from the street corner necessarily. But if you see a social media post, you go completely insane.
Well,
so
I'll tell you another story. I was in, I think Luke was actually there. I think you were, I'm not sure. We were in New York during a Stop Fascism protest. You were probably there because you're at every you're at everything I'm at, and I'm at everything you're at. It was called like Refuse Fascism or something like this. It's an organization associated with Revcom, Revolutionary Communists. And so I see this woman. I'm just out there filming, and I'm like just seeing what's up. I think this might have been like 2017 or 2018. I see this woman holding a sign that says "Stop Fascism" or whatever. And I'm filming, so I say, "Ma'am, is it all right if I'm doing a live stream? Is it okay if I ask you some questions?" And she's like, "Yes, of course." And I was like, "Do you want to just explain, why you came out today and what your sign means?" And then she's like, "Yes, I think blah blah blah." And she explains all this stuff. And then I said, I forgot how I said it, but I was very much just like, some of the activists here that have organized this are with an organization called Revcom. I'm curious if you are here just for Stop Fascism or Refuse Fascism, or if you actually came out with the Revolutionary Communist Party. And she snapped, started screaming at me, calling me Fox News. But what I said was a legitimate question that was true. Revcom was there. They were the ones that gave her the sign. She was waving their sign. And when I simply asked her, I was like, "Did you come out here in support of them, or is it just about fascism?" She snapped and started screaming and totally shut down. No more logical discussion. I couldn't even get a regular question in at that point. So there are people who are like, "I don't know what it is," And I was just like, "I'm sorry for asking."
It is best to start with your family, people that you have something in contact with, and then it's kind of like training a muscle. I think you mentioned that earlier, Bill. It's like a skill you need to have to succeed in life, is to be able to ask questions, to probe things you disagree with, and genuinely listen to that, empathize with people.
because the moment you have to disattach from an outcome of changing their mind.
Exactly.
If you want to do that, then people can sense it. And even if they want to agree with you, they won't agree with you if they feel like you're trying to pressure them into thinking what they think.
In fact, they might double down if they feel pressured.
Well,
That's what happened to Kanye. He wanted to double down because he's fed up with everyone telling him you can't think that.
So this is the issue with
One of the many things that happened to Kanye.
the basic manipulation, right? I've talked about this a lot over the years because I used to hang out at hackerspaces. Social engineering is like a principal subset of the hacker community, I don't know, whatever you'd call it. Whenever you hear about a big story about someone getting hacked, it's usually social engineering, the manipulation of a human being into giving up access or information or something like that. And in that, you learn a lot about this stuff. Here's the challenge I find. Knowing how to manipulate someone's position, I find to be the dark side. Actively going to someone and then pulling off that trick or poor extreme turn, to me, is evil. You are tricking someone into doing something that you want them to do. I believe the good thing to do is provide them with an opportunity and information and be a reasonable, understanding human being and let them be a free individual who decides for themselves. The problem? The other side uses those techniques on regular people, and that's why it's so difficult. Hence why you see things like with Kyle Rittenhouse, for instance, the media lies. The Covington kids, the media lies. Jussie Smollett, they lie. We here, I always look at it like this. We've decided to play a game of Monopoly, the left and the right. And we are watching the left pull bills out of the bank, and they just keep saying, "What are you going to do about it?" And we're like, "Guess I'll just keep playing. Can't understand why I keep losing, though." That's the challenge.
There's different modes for it, right? Because there's the dinner table where you should go into the conversation thinking, I might actually learn something. They might be right about something that I'm wrong about, which, by the way, for the dinner table is an important precedents come in. And then there's the political level, and I don't think it's right to conflate the two, because you should have a different mindset going into both.
Agreed. Yeah.
So you think that game theory, playing it out, good faith and bad faith will eventually stomp over the good faith?
I mean, I don't know if it's
Because-
absolute, but I'll put it this way: if you're gonna go, if you and Ian were gonna race a foot race, 100-meter sprint or something, and Ian's wearing rollerblades, are you gonna be like, I might be able to win this one? I mean, honestly, I don't know. You might be able to.
Yeah, and you haven't seen me rollerblade.
Yeah, and let's say he's
It's been
got
about
like
30 years.
and he's got 100-millimeter wheels, so they're real big, real fast. It's like,
I played hockey. I would kill you
Yeah.
in rollerblades.
okay,
Bill's
how
the
about
man,
he's on a
dude.
bike?
You can't
You're like,
stop
let's
him.
race, and he's riding a bike. You're like, okay, like how am I supposed to win this if you're riding a bike and I'm running and I'm trying to be honest and you're cheating?
I think if people know that they're being cheated or that they're using some dark energy to convince them, then they will revolt and embrace the light side. But if they don't know, that's when the dark will overcome the light.
Then maybe the simple thing is not to argue with people about their political perspective, but to show them an instance where the media lied, and that's just about it. Meaning, so you can ask them, be like, "Oh yeah, tell me about that. I genuinely want to hear more." And then when they say something that is to be factually false, you can say something like, "Oh, no, I heard about that one." Pull it up on your phone and be like, I think that one wasn't true, and show them.
And be proactive. Don't wait, because I had a conversation with my mom about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who she loves and has always loved. And I was like, really early on, I said, get ready, watch what the media is going to do, because I saw 2 articles where they said anti-vax, right? She's like, yeah. But if I'd waited 6 months to have that conversation, she'd already be indoctrinated by that media. So I was able to kind of cut it off at the turn. Kind of
Preempt it.
Yeah, like get ready that you might see some subterfuge coming. Were you about to say
Maybe it's as simple as just like when you're at the dinner table, you can be like, I don't want to argue. You're probably right about a whole bunch of stuff. Can I just show you this one thing? And then show them like where the media lied in a modern instance about something significant. And then be like, I'm not here to tell you what to think, what to believe. I just want you to see this. The crazy thing is the left accuses the media of lying all the time. But for some reason, they march in lockstep with these narratives because this is the challenge, I think. That's why I call it a cult. How do you break someone from a cult? Here's the real challenge I think we have. The reason why they're likely not going to care about your arguments, we're approaching this, and I think this is unfortunate, but we approach this from our personal biases, which is, we think we can have a reasoned discussion with someone. Perhaps planting the seed of an idea may change their mind. But what's being omitted from that conversation, is that these people are seeking only likes and retweets. That's it. They don't care about whether or not they're proving something to be true or solving a problem. They care if they get social gratification.
Again, you're now in the Twitter medium, right? And that's just like social media, as we discussed. All of these different scenarios demand different behavioral approaches.
Right. What I mean though is, it's not. I'm using social media as the vehicle to explain. The average person who sits down, like let's say you sit down with your family members. There's a reason why they hold these views. It's because you are the summation of the 5 people you surround yourself with. They're not going to want to agree with you. They will reject what you say because in 3 hours, they will once again be surrounded by cult members who will reinforce all of their thinking, and they will reject what you said. The challenge is, how do you get someone out of a cult? Add a top layer to that. Their phones keep them connected to the cult 24/7. What do you do?
I think that the likes and shares is kind of an empty purpose. It's definitely there's something to getting rich, but being listened to is, I think, more fulfilling than getting 100 likes. So that's why verbalizing and listening is so important with family and friends.
I do think I think there are a lot of regular people who believe false things and they're not woke, right? There's a thing too. I will say fair point to Winston in that a lot of the context of what I'm talking about specifically refers to people who are politically initiated. But there are a lot of people who I would refer to as uninitiated who believe it's what Andrew Breitbart called default liberal, who will be willing to listen to things even if they're a little hostile at first because it sounds foreign to them, but eventually will be like, you were right about that. That is to say, the left wins a lot because regular people who don't pay attention will just vote their way because they don't pay attention. And if we do speak to many of these people and we are calm and reasonable, we may end up finding that maybe it's only 10, 20, or 30% of these people aren't actually indoctrinated, aren't actually woke. They just don't know anything at all.
Absolutely. I think in fact, that would have been the case for me. I can think of examples in my history where I just had default normie positions without having really thought about them. And then when someone challenged me and I actually thought about it, that's when I changed my mind. I think you're absolutely right. People go along with it.
Yeah. I wonder if we had that moment with, for those who saw the members segment when I was ranting about Ukraine with Dr. Peter Boghossian. I'll just say, man, the war stuff triggers me. That's if like the one thing that takes me from calm to like cranked up to 11 is people trying to justify foreign intervention and war and all that stuff.
They'll use it against you.
Or just blowing people up and murdering innocent
lose
human
it.
beings. That is the epitome of absolute just immoral wrong on this earth.
There's nothing that gets me angrier than people who support, say like, what you want to trigger me? Come up to me and ignorantly try to justify the war in Ukraine without knowing anything about it, and I'm just going to be like, "You're out of your mind."
Do you ever use other tactics to manipulate them? I know it sounds cold, but like,
I'll just have a straightforward argument, and if they don't, like, when I used to do the nonprofit fundraising, it was all pure manipulation. They train you to manipulate, they tell you to manipulate, and then eventually it's just like, this is not good. Like, going out and convincing people to be part of a cause by tricking them is not a good thing, and I don't want to be part of that.
What's not?
I mean, sorry, here's a question. So if you're saying that you should not be able to be pro-war in Ukraine or whichever war without being knowledgeable about it, do you also think that you should not be able to be anti-war in Ukraine without being knowledgeable
No.
about it? So anti-war, it's okay to not be knowledgeable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, simply put, if you're saying, "Hey, I would like to blow up this faraway land," it's like, well, look, I got to be honest, I don't know anything about that, so I'm going to err on the side of we shouldn't blow people up. How about
innocent
that?
until proven guilty.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
If you can't provide me with a justification for why you're blowing people up, I'm not going to agree with you on it. But I mean, look, people who watch the show know me. They call me milquetoast fence sitter as kind of like, and the origin of that is someone commented on a video calling me that. And I totally went with it. I was like, yes, absolutely. Because there's too much I don't know. So I'm not going to come out and be like, this is definitively true. It's like, well, honestly, I don't know. I mean, if I see a video of it happening, I'll be more inclined to believe it and say, hey, look, there's a video of this Democrat guy attacking people. He was criminally charged for doing it. Stands to reason it's likely true. But for all I know, is a guy wearing a mask. I don't know. Pretending to be him. I really doubt it. Occam's razor suggests this dude was attacking people.
Dude,
but
this-
I'm not gonna just come out and be like everyone else said it's true, therefore it is. You know what I mean?
There's so much media manipulation. It seems like our goal, our job, I can't speak for everyone, but is to keep people calm, is to like create like a spiritual realm that we can all coexist in. Maybe it's just mine. I don't know. You have a great opportunity. You like bring intellect to, or like bring information to people. That I appreciate. I like to make people calm while they learn the information, but I'm less focused on the actual information, more on how you feel when you learn it.
Well, a lot of people are being hoodwinked. They're being conned. There's so much emotional manipulation. There's so many psyops, and I wish people would just realize your neighbor is not your enemy. The Republican down the street is not trying to hurt you or kill you, but they have convinced so many human beings that the person opposite of you, living next to you, or might believe something politically, is somehow your greatest danger to your existence. That's not true, and I think it's solely done on purpose so we don't realize who is or what is the purpose and the reason why people are suffering and dealing with so much pain and grief and pain and suffering in their life. And when you truly do kind of look at it, I think one of the biggest solutions is just being the best version of yourself, being personally responsible, being happy, and being healthy. And I think doing those things is a modern day act of resistance against our modern system and modern society, which thrives off of negativity and hatred and bigotry and just ignorance. And I think the more we strive to be better, the more we inspire others to do the same. And I think the small decisions, forget about trying to change other people, change yourself. Try to make yourself the best version of yourself. Try to make yourself an individual who doesn't buy into the psyops, doesn't buy the bullcrap, doesn't give your money to those evil beings, those evil creatures, those entities and demons that, of course, thrive off of screwing you over. And I think if we really kind of self-reflect more, that would be a lot better than just being like, you do what I want you to do. And I think we need more of
And
that.
I
in my
hand it to you,
opinion.
Luke, man. You put your money where your mouth is, because that event today, that gathering was incredible. It just...
There's a power of meeting with other like-minded individuals, just like the event that you guys are putting on tomorrow, and Bill, you're putting on Saturday. There's a power with individuals coming together. There's an energy there. There's a frequency there, and we could get all hippy-dippy about
This is
it,
why-
but there's a congruence. There is a combining of those energies that is very powerful.
This is why we are launching a coffee shop. It's going to be in West Virginia. The plans have already been drawn up. The contractor's been contracted, and we're preparing plumbing and all that stuff. The idea that we had was, you want to solve these problems, a lot of ways you can do it. You can have a family, you can have kids, you can get away from cities, homeschool your kids, all that good stuff. That's a powerful thing you can do right now. And don't forget, don't buy Bud Light or Anheuser-Busch products. Now, the other thing we're doing, I hope, my vision, in 5 years, 50 coffee shops around the United States in semi-urban, maybe suburban areas, cast brew coffee. When you walk in the front door and you walk up to the counter to buy coffee, there's a little seating area and there's a TV with Steven Crowder playing on it. There's a TV with Viva and Barnes, with Sticks X and Hammer, with Timcast IRL, with We Are Change. And people will walk in and they'll be sitting down and they'll be sipping their coffee and they'll be looking up and they'll just passively be watching these shows. We do that. We launch 1,000 of these coffee shops. We start franchising them. And then we put our perspectives in shopping centers. The other component is to start. Once we get this one up and running, the first thing I'm going to do is investigate franchising, because that's probably the fastest and easiest way to make these things exist everywhere. I don't need to be the CEO of a massive multinational corporation of coffee shops. I want coffee shops to exist where like-minded individuals can come, get together, and have a cup of coffee, and we can guarantee the expansion of ideas like ours or Crowder's or Luke's, etc. And all of the Minds creators who are coming to the event, etc. People like that.
No, it's amazing that you're starting a coffee shop, because coffee shops, there's actually research around this, led to the Age of Enlightenment.
Boom.
Like, I mean, not even joking. Like,
Yeah,
there's
it's true. I
empirical
remember
research
looking at that
that
myself.
people come together in coffee houses, and this is like the breeding grounds of
And
creativity.
what we'll do is we'll buy the building next door, and then we'll make Rudkowski's burrito shop, and then you
And
can get-
enema.
No,
Burrito
sure.
shop and enema.
The coffee for your butt and the coffee for your mouth.
That'll be down the stairs.
But,
the research.
real quick.
Okay.
The second and third floor of the building are our social club. So the second floor is going to be a basic social hangout, and the third floor is going to be our members only social club. We're probably going to film Poker with the Boys in this building on the third floor, where our top tier members are able to actually hang out. The show is mostly just a table talk podcast, meaning you get a handful of people to hang out and all talk about these issues, and poker's a backdrop to make it something more fun. But then we are going to have people come from all over to hang out, to meet each other, to share ideas. And the goal is to build community, strengthen bonds between people, learn who our neighbors are, share our moral values, and win a culture war.
Pierogies, not tacos.
Zooming out a little bit, and this is a conversation that I've been having in Britain with friends and like-minded people. If the institutions, the corporations are all captured as we believe they are by various ideologies, the response is that we need to build our own industries, our own infrastructure, our own, as you describe, businesses like this that are widespread. That is actually a great way of defeating the ideological capture of so many industries.
Yep. I'm really excited for the idea. Look, if we launch franchises, which I expect we will, imagine this. Not only will we carry, our coffee brand, but there's a whole bunch. We'll have Jeremy's Chocolate. So for our chocolate bars on the counter, for our impulse buys, we'll get Jeremy Boring's, chocolate brand. If we get a liquor license for upstairs, we'll have the Conservative Dad's, Ultra Right or whatever.
I have a cigar business.
Boom. Winston Cigars.
Yeah, we're called 1573, which is the year that tobacco first came to Britain. Might we stock you?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic.
And
Great.
we'll have, because especially if we're doing a social club, I don't know if we can actually allow people to smoke in the building.
You can get licenses. We'll talk later.
We'll
I'll
figure
sell
it
some
out.
cigars. I like cigars.
Because
My man.
So when we were talking about doing Poker with the Boys, obviously everyone asked, can we smoke cigars? And I'm like, I think the challenge is like, can you smoke indoors and stuff? But having a bunch of people sitting around playing a game of poker and smack talking, and and I'll stress this too, the idea for the show isn't actually about poker. It's to have a table with 8 or 9 people who are all talking about various issues, with poker as kind of the through line for everybody. So you'll see some table action and some ribbing on each other.
You have to be able to multitask.
But it's good. But you'll get the periodic, like I was mentioning, that guy who was talking about January 6th to me at the poker table. That stuff happens, and these are really interesting conversations when you get random people who don't know each other start talking about this stuff. That'll be fascinating. But then they'll light a cigar up.
We need to burn sticks. The problem you might have, though, is that it's so ideologically in one way that you need to attract the people who think differently. How are we going to do that?
It's a game of poker.
But if you've got Crowder on the telly,
Oh, you mean the coffee shops?
yeah, you got.
Well, this is the point. It's the Trojan horse. The average person, the normie, doesn't know or care about Crowder. And so they go to their local shopping center where they're picking up dog food, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to grab a iced coffee before I go home. And they go, oh, there's a coffee shop right there. And they walk in, and they're like, I'll do a large iced coffee with, half and half. And then they're waiting, and they look over, and there's the TV, and they're just watching. And then they see Crowder being like, can you believe the Democrats are doing this thing again? And they're just like, how about that?
I don't know
Businesses have always been solving problems that governments have created. So I do understand the business aspect here. I'm working on a vitamin business. I'm working on a butt coffee business. I'm also trying to get a pierogi beef liver business up and going. If anyone's in the pierogi beef liver industry, hit me up, please. But I do believe private enterprises can solve the problems that a lot of governments do create.
Regarding the Age of Enlightenment, the induction of coffee into the consciousness really did not only stimulate but change the way people communicated, but it was also they stopped drinking as much beer. They stopped drinking as much Anheuser-Busch products and started drinking coffee. I'm joking. They just stopped drinking alcohol as much. It used to be because the water was often contaminated. They would drink beer all day, and it was just the dark age. But then...
Yeah, look into the Steven Johnson research on coffee. He's the man on it.
Coffee's great. Hey, we're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and become a member at timcast.com by clicking join us at timcast.com. And then you'll get access to the members only uncensored show, which will be live at about 10 p.m. Eastern. As soon as we wrap the live show here, we immediately begin setting up the live show, which takes a few minutes. Then we go live uncensored. And if you've been a member for at least 6 months or you sign up at the $25 level, you can actually call into the show and ask us questions. We can only do a few per day. We do about 3 or 4 per day, so not everybody can get in, but we try to take as many as possible, as often as possible. I think it's the most fun part of the day. That being said, let's read your comments in the Super Chats. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's get these Super Chats in. We'll start at the beginning. And where are we at?
Thanks for hosting, by the way, Tim. This is really nice.
Jason Corey says, screw Bud Light and the far left. This super chat is a celebration of buying my first motorcycle that is being delivered tomorrow. Harley 2016 Roadster. Very cool. All right. New in Kalamazoo News Channel says, Tim, Ian, and the rest. You have inspired me to start my own local news channel here on YouTube and just uploaded my first video today. Here's $20 as a thank you.
Let's shout it out. What's the name of the channel?
New in Kalamazoo News Channel.
Cool, man.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Jeremy Dobler says, nefarious movie opens this weekend. We need to support this film. Yeah, have you guys heard of this film, Nefarious?
No.
It's was it Steve Deese? Is that who
Oh my gosh, Steve! Prayers for Steve Deese. He had an infection a couple days ago. His wife was tweeting about his health.
Right, yeah,
but hopefully he's doing good now. So Steve's movie's coming out.
That was his movie, right? I want to make sure I'm getting this right.
What's the premise?
It's a horror film. Let me make sure I have this right. I'm sure everyone in the chat is already saying, yes, it's Steve Deese.
Steve Deese.
Yeah.
Nice work, Steve.
I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that one. I feel bad because we literally had him on the show and he brought a screener and I'm like, make sure I'm not getting this wrong. All right. S.A. Federale says, Bill and Ian's constant push for open source is truly classically liberal civil libertarianism. Keep pushing, spiral out. Also, Bill's idea of paying us all back for AI training data instead of UBI is absolutely godly.
Yeah, Bill suggested, this is on Joe Rogan's podcast again, that in a form of UBI that's paid through the corporations that use your data. I thought it was genius.
I mean, rev share, pay creators. Let's do it. I mean, people should not. It's very tempting to use GPT-4, but they should be paying people if they're using your data.
All right, let's see what we got. John Hutto says there are 2 sets of documents. The Discord are legit. The Telegram are modified. Interesting. Is that what they're saying? That someone took them and modified them? Well, if that's the case, then maybe we are incorrect, and we'll have to follow up on that one. All right. Gnarls Chukowski says, hey, Tim, Charles Hoskinson said he would come on Timcast IRL if you sent the invite. Let's make that happen. I kind of feel like we invited him a long time ago. Who's he? Is he the Ethereum guy?
Cardano. He
Cardano
was
Cardano
involved
guy.
in Ethereum.
Right. Yes. We'll follow up on that one. All right. Where are we at? Mr. Grizzly Bear says bomb threats have occurred at most AB locations with screaming matches between workers and managers. Workers are walking out due to safety concerns, but we are told it's not credible and to continue operations like normal. Whoa. What are you? Do you work at Anheuser-Busch? Is that what you're saying?
All you got to do is not buy the product.
Barney Boyle says, did you see the Red Bull hot air balloon skate park? No, what is that? Did they float a skate park into the air and then skate on it?
I hope so. That sounds bad.
Is that what it is? Someone want to Google that?
Sure sounds Red Bull.
All right. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, it goes like this. The more I learn about our government, the more I realize how dirty, corrupt, and manipulative our U.S. government is. A realization I wasn't expecting from my normie days. Eyes wide open.
Yeah, Red Bull put skate park 2,000 feet in the sky. It's
Wow.
a floating skate park.
A floating skate park.
News from 14 hours ago. Wow.
Oh, I'll have to check that one out. That
There's
sounds
images
pretty
of it
good.
and stuff. Cool.
All right. What do we got? Let's see. David Molinar, what does it say? Molinarolo says, my God, you guys will fall for anything. You really think Russia has only lost 17,000 troops? They lose that much in less than a month. I would just say the exact same thing back to you. Do you really think they lost 200,000 troops? That's a huge amount of people. Like, we don't know. We literally don't know. The U.S. is going to say it's huge. Russia's going to say it's low. Pick your poison. Now, I doubt either side is going to be factual on this one. All right, let's see. OMG Puppy says Bellingcat is associated with MI6. Wow. A Siri Design says, why does a 21-year-old have that security clearance?
It's a good question.
Good question.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got here? Lori Dowell says, Chris Martinson behind his $10 paywall showed the logistics paperwork. Tim should also find and post, Ukraine is within days of running out of all kinds of equipment and necessary war materials. I heard that, but I also heard that the data was actually quite old. So it may be a few months, different. All right, let's see what we got here. Aurora Isabella says, love Ian's jacket. It looks so comfy.
Tim bought this for me. Thank you very much.
We were at the mall and I was like, that looks like Ian.
And you were right.
And then I was like, I'm going to buy it.
Manifest.
I want one.
So I'll give
Really
you the company,
comfy,
man.
man.
Yeah, you
I
get
get
them
like I'll
online.
get like a different color that's a little bit more.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's so warm.
I mean, I like
I don't
that color,
dry it
but-
either. I just wash it and hang it up to dry. Keep it fluffy.
Russell Hatton says, Tim, it's not only a strategic marketing strategy. It's only a matter of time until people's pronouns are Bud Light and identify as a beer can. I think you're right, actually. Yeah, we were talking earlier and someone said, like, I wonder what dating's going to be like for my kids. And I was like, they're going to go on a dating app and they're going to meet a carrot and they're going to meet in person and find out it's a human and be like, dude, you told me you were a carrot. Like, you carrot fished me. This is BS. And it's a joke, but like what I mean to say is online, you can be anything. And so people are going to be like, I'm a beer can or like, I'm a fish. And then you're going to meet them. It's like, you're a person. You know what I mean? Like, you lied. And they're going to be like, oh, don't tell me that. I identify my pronouns are beer can. So there you go. Mitch the engineer says, as someone personally familiar with the dairy explosion, it was a freak accident caused by automated machinery with an electrical short coupled with a methane buildup during a slurry cleanout of the milking parlor. Wow.
Man, even centralizing cows is dangerous. The same thing
Yes.
can happen with wheat and wheat silos because there's like
Yeah.
a gas that builds up.
Well, that's the other thing too. Like you see those bales of hay, those things burst into flames like relatively often. I guess what happens is when they bunch it all together, it starts breaking down inside, releasing flammable gases, and then it gets really, really hot because it's super packed, and then it reaches ignition, and then when the whole thing goes up.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, they do this thing, I guess, where they like stick a crowbar or something inside it to like
Release.
Aerate it, yeah.
yeah, and test the temperature, but sometimes they burn them on purpose. I don't know. Yeah. All right. David Molinarolo says carbon dioxide makes up 0.04% of the atmosphere, up from 0.03. If it drops to 0.02, plant life starts dying off. There is no climate crisis, period.
Methane, I
Interesting.
know, is part of it too.
And water vapor. Yeah. Super 503 Dank says, what's stopping them from sending useless eaters to war?
I think that's what they
People
do.
like
That's what
us.
they did.
I mean, it's people like you, people that speak up.
All right. Kevin Corbett says, fact check, Shinerbach is not owned by AB InBev. Was I wrong about that one? I thought that was on their website. I'm going to check real quick. That's important.
Do you guys have
Anheuser-Busch products. What do we have here?
Favorite beer while Tim's looking that up, Winston?
I'm sober. But,
Yeah, me
I'm
too.
still fun though.
I haven't touched beer in a year and a half.
Oh,
I think I
really?
had half one a while ago. I can't, the cans, there's too much. 12, 16 ounces is too much. I think they should sell 6 ounces. if
This is
they
my
do.
first beer in like 6 months, and I only want half.
Yeah.
Boo.
With no tolerance, half a beer is enough for me. Plus, I'm 130 pounds.
Is there anything
You
that
drink, bro? Come on.
Is there anything that Anheuser-Busch could do to redeem themselves?
They could do an apology, in my opinion, that gets more views than the ad that caused the uproar. If they can do that somehow, if they can create a viral campaign
Of
for
course they
apology.
could. It would be easy. They would just have to invert the whole thing. And I don't know.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Maybe just come out with a can with something hilarious on it that mocks the whole situation, or just go at the other side. Find
Oh, wow.
find a figure on the
Bex
other.
is AB.
Find a figure on the other
Budweiser,
side.
Castle, Corona, Harbin,
Modelo.
Hoegaarden, Jupiler, Leffy, Blonde, Michelob Ultra, Modelo, Quilmes,
sad.
Skoll, Stella.
Maybe
Look at
what
that.
if they should put Blair White on the can?
or the Dalai Lama.
That would-
That's what Luke. That was what a meme that he did earlier.
Yeah, put the Dalai Lama
Wait,
on there.
did you guys talk? Have you talked about that yet?
Not really,
I mean,
not on the
come
show.
on, what?
Did you see?
Yeah.
So,
So weird,
for
dude.
reference, Dalai Lama
Yeah,
was hanging out with
horrible.
this kid. There's a video of it, and he's forehead to forehead, and then he puts his tongue out, and it's like encouraging the kid to suck his tongue.
It's so weird.
It is freakish, and it looked like a gorilla with another a little monkey playing, but it was still very weird.
Let's call it what it is. It's paedophilia. It's appalling.
Suck my tongue.
Yeah, I'm down with
disgusting.
that, man.
It's disgusting.
Yeah,
I
Not
can't.
acceptable.
can't
There's,
pull up,
there's no play rationalization. There's no silly. There's no silly tongue sucking.
That was the rationalization, was that he playfully
Yeah,
playfully.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
so-
I said Shinerbach. I meant Shock Top. Shock Top, not Shinerbach. Shock Top. I confused that because they share letters. Apologies for that. It's Shock Top. All right. You were correct, Kevin Corbett. I apologize for that. Wanted to make sure.
Tim really dug that one out. That took.
That's journalistic integrity right there.
Well, I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. E. Smith says Shinerbach is not owned by Ann Bush. Thank God. You are correct. I
Probably
was wrong with
drinking
him.
one right now or something. He's like, oh no.
They're sitting there drinking it like, no! Sparky says Yuengling beer is American owned and brewed. Their Golden Pilsner is first rate. Its head guy was an early adopter of anti-wokeness. I mean, my issue is like, I don't care if beer is doing a pride flag stuff. I really don't care about that. I care that Dylan Mulvaney targets children. Like, I'm telling people, like, could you imagine if they hired Mr. Beast and he comes out with a pack of Marlboro Reds and he's like, hey kids, light them up. They're great. I'd be like, what are you doing? Like, no, don't do that. So Dylan Mulvaney's audience is a bunch of kids. They're promoting drinking alcohol to kids, among the other like ridiculous stuff that Dylan Mulvaney does. But like, it's more than just like, you know, Joe Rogan came out and said, who cares if they're trying to get more people to drink their beer? Why are you so mad about it? And it's like, yo, I don't care that Miller Coors did a pride flag thing. I don't care that Yuengling did a pride flag thing. I care that Dylan Mulvaney is a deranged sociopath who mocks and insults women and trans people and is trying to sell beer to children.
Yeah,
This- you know,
he's
that's
willing to take money to influence young children to destroy their liver and brain. Like that's messed up.
This is another classic trick that is played in conversation over the trans issue. Is people go, why do you care? It's only 0.0001% of the population. No, actually it's not. It affects all women, so that's 50% of the population. You've got to protect women. If people with penises, i.e. men, are in women's spaces, women are not safe. If you have a mother or a sister or any female friend, i.e. everyone, it should be of your concern. And in my country, the state, we have been paying, and our taxes have been going to the state, and as has been revealed with the Tavistock Clinic and GIDS, we state-funded have been giving kids irreversible hormones for the change sex, as well as puberty blockers. This is a serious issue that should worry everyone. It's total bullshit. Anyone who says, why do you care? It's a niche thing. No, it affects everyone.
Absolutely. We'll talk more about that in the member segment for sure. All right, let's see what we got here. C. Stallion says the end of the world is just the beginning, mapping the collapse of globalization by Peter Zeihan.
Gosh, we should have him on someday. Are you guys familiar with Zeihan?
No.
I heard
Yeah,
mixed
Zion's great.
feelings about
Yeah.
him. I heard people be very unhappy with him, and other people rave and rant about him.
Some stuff's wrong, but I like the
He's
dude.
got a killer ponytail.
Toy Painter 1 says,
Right.
my daughter, son-in-law, and grandkids cut off all contact with us in June of 21 because we didn't get the jab. There is no uniting this country.
Have faith.
No, but I agree. There's no uniting this country. I do think that there are people who are uninitiated that don't know better that you can probably talk to. That's true. But I think some of these people are just, yeah. Like, how do you stop people from voting for a Democrat who is attacking people in their cars? You don't. There's no way around that.
Give them a better option.
Well, you got RFK running as a Democrat, or you can vote for Marianne Williamson, and I mean that sincerely. Marianne Williamson is loads better than Biden or anyone else the Democrats have to offer. And that's why they attacked her so ruthlessly. This poor woman, she's this lovey-dovey, like self-help person.
She's into consciousness and meditation.
And then they started calling her the woo-woo crystal lady. And she's like, why are they insulting me? And I'm like, oh, you poor naive, summer spirit. Just you didn't understand how evil and corrupt these people are when it comes to power. And she probably thought entering the race that, the media was real and journalists were honest. And then all of a sudden they started just ripping her to shreds. I feel bad. And then she had that moment where I think she was on Tucker Carlson or something like that, where she said the right is so much nicer and the left is so mean and nasty. And then she had to come out and be like, no, I don't mean it. So anyway, look, I wouldn't vote for a Democrat. That's the reality. I don't care who it is. But, it is true. They need you need subversion and alternatives.
Would you vote for a Democrat if it was Tulsi Gabbard?
I don't know. Probably not. I supported her when she was running last time in the primaries, and then she didn't win, obviously. But there's a bunch of things I disagree with her on. But she's come around a lot of things as well, and I think she is pretty good. The issue at this point is voting for a Democrat empowers the malignancy within the Democratic Party.
So if she was an independent, you would be more likely to?
Yeah,
Just to
the
not
issue is
support
I'm
the
not
party?
going to give a vote to the Democratic Party. It doesn't matter who's in charge. You've got too many, I would say 99.9% of the Democratic Party is as corrupt can be. I can say like maybe Ro Khanna is okay, but he's still kind of bad. And so that's the best the Democratic Party has to offer. The Republicans, like 87% bad. So that's like the only reason I consider voting Republican is because you have a new insurgent party, MAGA, that's been taking over, and the Freedom Caucus has actually gained substantial power in Congress. So I think it's worth it. All right, what do we got? Bree Sullivan says, can you talk about the Restrict Act? It's not getting talked about enough, and it goes way beyond banning TikTok. It'll control what you can post on social media.
Yeah, it basically, it doesn't even name TikTok. They give the Commerce Department and the Secretary of Commerce authority to just pick which apps get banned. And, there's fines for using VPNs. It's basically like they manipulated everyone into saying, oh yeah, we have to ban TikTok. They're giving data to the Chinese. And then they bring in this like Patriot Act 2.0 type situation, which is they manipulated people on TikTok. So I think the cat's out of the bag that everyone who was concerned about TikTok knows not to support the Restrict Act at this point. But
what do you think about the tactic to force TikTok to free its software code to AGPL3 in order to exist in the United States?
I mean, yeah, I don't know about forcing.
I agree with that.
Legislation.
But I'll clarify. It was actually proposed by members of Congress that they will have to release their code on how their algorithm functions and how their data collection functions if they want to persist in the United States. And I think that's a solution. Because if they then, and they said, oh, we'll get back to you on that. If we can then see that they are actively trying to manipulate us and how they're doing it, okay. That actually gives us more in our arsenal to ban them or shut them down or legislate how they should be acting. And then if it's true they are stealing data and giving it to China, which we're pretty sure, like we know they're doing it, then we will see that before we just say, you know what, we've heard these stories, so you're out. We say, okay, here's your chance to prove you're not as bad as they said you are. TikTok said no. They were just like, we'll let you know. So that's why I'm kind of like ban them. It's bad enough our social media is manipulative and evil. I don't want China in here doing that stuff.
But the thing is, Google and Facebook, we don't know that just because they're U.S. based, they could just as easily be sharing data with China. It's U.S.
Well, Five Eyes Spy Club, they're all sharing data with each other.
And so I think if we legislated that TikTok had to do it and free their software code, that would be a sort of precedent to then force Google and Facebook to free their software code, and because they're functioning in the commons.
You just can't, I don't think, specifically say only TikTok has to share their code. There would have to be something more universal.
Foreign social networks that have over 100 million users per month or something.
I mean, yeah, it would be.
I don't know.
kinda
I think it
nice,
could be
but-
surgical. TikTok is a foreign-owned corporation that we have concerns they're stealing data and manipulating people in this country, propagandistic efforts. So we isolate specifically.
So they open it, and then we see that it's just super invasive.
And then we have hard justification to escalate. But if they release it and say, okay, we're willing to change these things, and then we can actually be like, you have to stop. This part of the code is bad, this part of the code is bad, and this part of the code is bad. Get rid of those, and you can keep operating.
The app cannot function without surveillance.
The other option is we could take the code and
Then we
build
just ban
our
it.
American.
Shut it down.
Yeah, build the American.
I just feel
version
like
of
the
it.
regulation would be better to do like an encrypt act and get everybody end-to-end encrypted, and also make the app store much better labeled for.
The problem, though, is that I don't care about data. Like, if you're concerned about your privacy, stop using these things. The problem is the algorithmic manipulation. The problem is that if we're banned from TikTok. So we're biased to a certain degree. We broke no rules. What rules, like, does this show break? We don't get banned from YouTube. We don't break the rules. We're very, on the level. TikTok banned us probably because the conversations we have, they don't want young people seeing. They want young people to get a psychotic message that breaks their brains. So I'm just like, TikTok is bad. Get rid of it.
It's just not gonna stop it, and it's gonna enrage everybody, and you're gonna empower all the pro TikTok people to think that they're being rebellious by using a VPN and going and using TikTok
good.
anyway.
Go for it.
Well, I think
Good luck getting a VPN and downloading the APK onto your Android phone, because you can't get it on an iPhone anymore unless you jailbreak it. I don't care. And I'll say this. Here's a simple solution. Rumble, launch a mobile app that has shorts. Rumble, I got pro skateboarders hitting up. This is huge. That Rumble's going to be doing pro skateboarding. I was surprised to hear they're doing the RNC. They're doing gaming, and they're doing pro skateboarding. I think Rumble's on track to win.
sounds
hands
like
down.
Chris Pavlovsky watches the show.
Sounds like
What's up,
he's
dude?
got him and the team know exactly what needs to happen to win a culture war. And the one thing I've talked about is that Rumble is too much of an echo chamber. The first thing Rumble did was they went after those who are censored to build a base. Now they're targeting general interest, which is the smartest thing they can be doing. And I'll also add, all of our infrastructure is with Rumble. Our website, our after show, and all that stuff. We're just, I guess legacy on YouTube for the time being.
Have you guys with Minds been investigating doing shorts?
Yeah, vertical video is essential. Yeah, we have like a swipe feed story type vertical video feed on our mobile app, and yeah, kind of going deeper into that is huge.
Oh, here we go. Todd B says, Tim, did you see Stephen King's tweet about if men could get pregnant, there would be backing for abortion? You can guess the response, but I will let it be a surprise. I did see that, and everyone called him a bigot, and they were like, how dare you, transphobe, etc.
Well, you're welcome on the show, Stephen.
Yeah. Good luck. Brian Forsaken, as the world crumbles, says, Kyle Rittenhouse Bud can. Yep. All right. Normies Get Out says, the brewery is owned by the Gambrinus Company, a family-owned company based in San Antonio, which also owns Trumer Brewery in Berkeley, California. Shiner is not owned by Anheuser-Busch. I want to make sure I stress that one, because I meant Shock Top, not Shiner Bock. Is the sh-ak sound that, or the asa. That's what got me. It got me. I was wrong. I made a mistake. Guys. Don't be mad. All right. Nathan Sherwood says, Luke doesn't need alcohol because his brain has clearly already been destroyed.
Slam.
That's a good one.
I can't remember what happened, but we were watching a movie or something. I think it was when we were watching. I can't remember what it was, but everyone in the room, like someone made a joke, or I did, and then Luke immediately starts laughing, and everyone else goes, "Oh!" And I just thought it was hilarious that, like, me and Luke have a similar sense of humor where it can be like offensive and raunchy, and he just laughs.
The more offensive, the more funnier it is. Let's just be honest. And I might have brain damage, probably.
True. Same.
From all that tear gas.
Too much red pill?
Let's see. H Unstoppable says, Tucker Carlson was on a podcast, and from what he said, these objects or beings most likely have been here a long time, and they seem to be going in and out of water at high speeds. We don't see them in space as much as out of water. Atlantis.
William Cooper was also documenting that many, many years ago in his book, Behold the Pale Horse, describing objects that he saw as a naval intelligence officer literally coming out of water like it was not breaking any kind of force field at all and moving extremely fast as underwater as it did in the sky. So he
No
was
clipping.
describing these things for a very long time, and we have seen very similar reports from a lot
Okay.
of different individuals.
They're
Transmedium.
not aliens. They're admins, and they are moving as fast as they can because they have no clipping turned on, which means they are not interacting with matter. They're moving just through it.
Have you
right?
seen ball lightnings?
No.
They actually,
But
it's like
it's
a
real.
ball
It's
of
crazy.
lightning that moves through matter. Or through windows and stuff. It can
What
go
if we're in a simulation and what we
plasma.
think are aliens are literally just
Admins,
like,
yeah.
they're admins.
I love that. That's
yeah, they're
great.
going around, they're like correcting errors and they're like dealing with user problems. And then the issue is a lot of people are like, yeah. So the people obviously are going to say like, I don't get any help from the admins. Yeah, because we're all NPCs. Like we are in the program as non-player characters. And right now there's like, maybe 50,000 players or a few million players in a world of billions. And they contact the admins for assistance, and they're listening to shows like this. Like when you play Fallout 3 and you got Three Dog and he's like on the radio and the post-apocalyptia.
I wonder if there's only a certain amount of bandwidth to have a certain amount of PCs at once. Because some days I feel like an NPC and I'll be like, what did I just do the last 4 hours?
See? Ian, you exist to facilitate a video game for other people. We're all just NPCs. We're just we are named NPCs. Like we're not like shopkeeper, or like, mechanic. It's like we're NPCs with names. So it's not much of an upgrade from a regular NPC. We're all still NPCs, but that's the simulation. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show if you like it, and become a member at timcast.com. Go to timcast.com, click join us, because we're going to have an uncensored show live on the front page of the website in about 10 minutes, and you don't want to miss it. We got a lot to talk about. You can follow the show at TimCastIRL on Instagram. You can follow me personally everywhere at Timcast. Winston, you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, you can follow me at Mr. Win Marshall on Twitter or at Winston Marshall on Instagram. And I've got a podcast, Marshall Matters, which you can find all the usual podcast outlets and YouTube.
Right on, Bill.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. You can find me at minds.com, minds.com, or on the app stores, search Minds. And also we're reopening our equity crowdfunding. So if you want to own stock, be a part of it, wefunder.com/minds.
And this Saturday,
Minds Fest. We're going to be streaming live on Destiny's channel and having crazy, and on minds.com. We're actually launching our first live streaming test.
Nice.
I mean,
yeah.
I'll say this too. Like, if you do want to go, you probably should buy your tickets now, because when we go live tomorrow, our Timcast IRL is sold out. I guarantee you, the moment we say tomorrow is Minds, the people who are already there are going to buy whatever's left.
It's tickets.vulcanpresents.com.
I'm going to be there. Ian's going to be there.
Ian's gonna be
Thank
there.
you guys so much for
It's
putting it all
a great
together. It really
lineup.
means a lot. I want to shout out a person that said that I should call my enema coffee business Butt Light. That might be a real thing. So thank you. My website is lukeunfiltered.com. The members meetup today was awesome. I'm going to be doing another one in a few days in Miami. Lukeunfiltered.com. And soon I'm going to have a very big challenge ahead of me. I'm going to be confronting a very, very bad person, the Potato Man himself, Seamus Coughlin. I have agreed to his terms. There will be a debate and very strong intellectual fight that will happen between me and the Potato Man next week on We Are Change on YouTube. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be crazy.
And I wanted to shout out, I'm Ian Crossland, if you don't know, someone that I met today at Luke's gathering that has a cross-state situation with his daughter, similar to the Jeff Younger case, I think. I don't know a lot about it, but I wanted to point you guys to website www.rescuebex. It's rescuebex.com. He's been asked for support and just to bring some awareness to this situation. So hopefully this will help. I had a great time today, you guys, everyone that was at the gathering. And Luke, again, thank you for inviting me. Winston, Bill,
Love you,
love
buddy.
you dudes. Tim, great.
Thanks, Tim.
Right on. And of course, Serge is pressing the buttons.
Yeah, what's up, guys? I'm Serge.com on Twitter. Come argue with me.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about 10 minutes. Thanks for hanging out.